My fusion system. Fusing 1,000 chickens at the start. Chapters 466 to 472. Chapter 466. The Race Chess Pieces. Under the orders of King Landhar III, the third prince quickly left the palace. He also left the magic crystals in King Landhar III's hands. Father, I wonder how you plan to reward us. After the third prince left, the second prince licked his lips and rubbed his hands in excitement. The first prince might be mature, but he also felt happy in his heart. Their gifts did not satisfy King Landhar III, but he still kept them. What did that mean? That meant they had a higher status in King Landhar III's heart. Even if they did not give him a better gift, King Landhar III would still praise them. He believed that King Landhar III would be more willing to hand over the throne to one of them. In other words, the third prince had already lost the right to compete for the throne. Don't worry, I will reward you now. King Landhar III walked up to the first prince and picked up the blessings of the gods and demons in the gift box that the first prince had given him. After sizing it up for a moment, he placed the potion in his hand in front of the first prince and said, "My dear son, thank you for being so respectful and for finding such a precious potion for me. Unfortunately, I am already old, and even if I start cultivating now, I will not be as good as you young people. Therefore, rather than giving this potion to me, you should eat it yourself." "Father, how can you say that? That is a gift from me to you. I cannot accept it. Listen to me and eat that potion." Since it was an order, the first prince hesitated for a moment but still nodded. "Very well, father." He had always yearned for that potion. During the journey, he could not help but want to swallow the potion several times. However, for his father, he endured it. Then, with his father's approval, he could not hold it in any longer. As soon as he finished speaking, he swallowed the blessings of the gods and demons. A set of 6 enormous wings appeared on his body in a flash of light, and a halo also appeared above his head. A holy aura spread out from the first prince's body, making him look noble. Seeing the first prince transform into an angel, the second prince looked envious. At that moment, King Landhar III said, "As for the world tree sapling that my second son gave to me, I won't be able to use it for a while. I might as well return it to you." The second prince opened his mouth to refute his words. Before he could speak, King Landhar III had already stretched out a finger to stop him. Then, he turned his head to look at Balder and the other two standing not far away. "I want to use that world tree to increase the strength of my second son. I wonder if you have any good ideas. I know a way to combine plants and the human body. However, that method requires the crops to ripen first. If it's just a sapling, even if it's a sapling of the world tree, it would be difficult for it to last until the moment of perfect combination with the human body." Gaia, who looked like Augustus, crossed her shoulders and walked out to speak. Controlling the crops was part of her power as the goddess who controlled the earth and fertility. "Leave the ripening of the crops to me." After Gaia spoke, Diana, who was riding the purple lightning dragon, waved her right hand at the sapling, which had already grown to several meters on the ground. A huge, dark red moon immediately appeared above the sapling. Under the illumination of the dark red moon, the world tree, which was several meters tall, grew rapidly. Soon, its size expanded dozens of times, and it became dozens of meters tall. That scene surprised the first prince and the second prince, and they could not help but retreat. At that moment, Diana walked quickly to the second prince's side. She stretched out her slender arm and hooked it around the second prince's shoulder. Then, before the second prince could react, she bent down, her soft lips pressed against the second prince's mouth. That kiss made the second prince's pupils dilate, and a red cloud quickly rose on his face. As a prince, he had seen countless beautiful women. However, Diana was different from all the beautiful women he knew. It was as if the woman in front of him was the most beautiful of all the women. She was the goddess that he was destined to meet. A long breath of aftertaste accompanied the sweet and delicious kiss. It made him feel as if he had fallen into a dream and could not extricate himself. HMPH, I did not expect Diana would not let even a mortal off. I think she should not be called the moon goddess, but the wanton goddess. Gaia saw what Diana had done and stood to complain. Even though she was complaining, she still extended her right hand toward the world tree that had become dozens of meters tall. With a light pinch, the world tree immediately shrank. She pinched it into a ball of emerald green liquid. Not only did that liquid have the aura of life in the color of emerald, but it also had the glittering blessing of fertility from her goddess of the earth. One after another, illusions that looked like plump wheat ears rose from the emerald liquid. With the name of the goddess of the earth and fertility, Gaia, I hereby bless that young man in front of me to be able to bear the energy of the world tree. He will be able to bear everything just like the earth. As Gaia prayed, the world tree sap turned into a stream of emerald light and entered the second prince's body. As the liquid entered his body, the second prince's body immediately emitted a thick and heavy aura, and his tear continued to rise. The second prince's strength was not weak. He was at least gold tier. However, as the aura of the world tree entered his body, his tier instantly rose by an entire tier. He had entered the platinum tier and was still rising. He did not stop until he reached peak platinum tier. I've also reached the platinum tier? Feeling the powerful strength coming from his body, the second prince pushed Diana away. He casually extended a finger from his right hand. An emerald green vine immediately stretched out from his hand and swept across the ground. It broke the ground, leaving a ditch that was more than 10 meters long. Eldest brother, I seem to have become stronger than you. Feeling that the branches of the world tree that he could control now seemed to have become one with the world tree, the second prince could not help but say in pleasant surprise. The first prince's expression was very ugly when he heard that. He had finally eaten the blessing of the gods and demons and turned into a platinum tier angel. He had thought that he would be able to suppress his other two younger brothers, but he did not expect his second brother to become even stronger than him. Do not be anxious. That level is not considered powerful. Next, you can become even more powerful. King Landhar III's voice rang out behind the two of them. You have been my sons for more than 20 years, especially my eldest son. Previously, I was a little too harsh on you, and I have never given you any rewards. At that time, I will make it up to you. Thank you, father. The first prince and the second prince agreed in unison, their hearts filled with doubt. Usually, King Landhar III was not only strict with them, but he also always had an expression of disappointment. At that time, King Landhar III was so amiable that they were not used to it. That was the first time King Landhar III had said such a thing. While they were puzzled, the two princes could not help but feel ecstatic. If King Landhar III had made them feel as if they were distancing themselves from the third prince, then at that moment, after hearing their father's words, they no longer held the third prince in any regard. They had become platinum tier elites, they would definitely become stronger. The third prince was not even a gold tier elite, what right did he have to compete with them? Filled with joy, they saw King Landhar III beckon to the leader of the Dragon Knights. The person called Julius immediately took 2 transparent bottles for their father. Inside the bottles, 2 dark, unknown things were squirming. Come, you two, eat these. The 2 princes subconsciously felt nauseous and disgusted by the things that King Landhar III had given them. They opened the bottle, thinking that it might be of great use if it looked disgusting. They swallowed the dark, viscous liquid. How does it taste? King Landhar III asked coldly. Father, thank you for your gift. It tastes pretty good. The second prince gave a thumbs up. Just as he was about to praise it, his facial features twisted, and he could not take it anymore. He walked to the side and vomited. The first prince was more straightforward. He walked to the side and vomited. The intense nausea made the 2 princes dizzy. After vomiting for a while, they fell to the ground. They had vomited a large amount of blood. The blood was mixed with something that looked like ruptured organs. What is that? Staring at the thing on the ground, the first prince's eyes went blank as if he did not quite understand. At that moment, he suddenly felt a piercing pain in his back, and he turned his head with difficulty. He found a dagger stuck in his back, and the owner of that dagger was King Landhar III. The second prince had also fallen to the ground. There was also a dagger stabbed into his back, and his dead fish-like eyes stared at the sky in disbelief. Father, why? He never thought that his father, whom he had always respected and loved, would attack him. Just a moment ago, his father's face was kind, and he had wanted to help them improve their strength. How did things turn out like that? The dignified King Landhar III looked sad. Tears slid down the corners of his eyes. I'm sorry, my sons. I did not give you enough fatherly love, and now I have killed you. As a father, I can only say that I am not qualified to be one. The only thing I can give you in return is to let you enjoy the feeling of becoming strong before you die. Father, you. The first prince's lips moved. He wanted to say something, but he could not say anything. His eyes rolled up, and he fell straight to the ground, turning into a corpse. King Landhar III took the dagger on the first prince's back and wiped the blood. He threw it on the ground. The flashing platinum light showed that that dagger was a platinum-tier weapon. Thus, it could destroy the hearts of the two princes who had improved their tiers. King Landhar III, you are a ruthless guy. You wouldn't even let your own son go. I did not expect that you'd use your son's bodies. Balder crossed his arms, he said indifferently from the side. When King Landhar III led them to the palace, he thought that the bodies that King Landhar III had prepared for them were the bodies of the palace guards. He did not expect King Landhar III to kill two of his three sons with his own hands. The aura of a peak diamond tear emerged from his body, evaporating the tears at the corners of his eyes. King Landhar III's face remained sorrowful. Don't say anything anymore. I'm also very sad to have made such a decision. If I could, I would not want to kill my son. Unfortunately, I have no choice. If I let them live, they would die sooner or later because of my plan. I might as well let them be the vessels of the gods and contribute to the descent of the gods. My eldest son took the blessing of the gods and demons. According to my understanding, that potion can grant one immortality. If your companions want to descend, they had better hurry up. Otherwise, things will be difficult if my son is resurrected. You don't have to tell us that. Don't worry. For the gods, the descent is only an instant. The will of the body that the gods possess will be completely assimilated and controlled by the gods. Even if that person's body is still alive, if his mind is absorbed, they are no longer alive. Balder spoke in a calm tone. As he spoke, the two corpses lying on the ground suddenly trembled. Black light appeared in their eyes, and they crawled up from the ground. The pure white wings on the first prince's back had turned bright red as if they were soaked in fresh blood. He opened his mouth and laughed loudly with an insolent expression. I've been waiting for a long time. Last time, I was careless and killed by Watson. When the time comes, I will definitely take revenge on him. If I don't crush his bones and drain his blood, I will not let the matter rest. This body is stronger than the one I used last time. However, why does this body smell like Gaia and Diana? Two streams of foreign divine power remain in the body, making me very uncomfortable. On the other hand, the second prince's body also floated upward. Vines emerged from his body and intertwined with each other, forming a huge vine-woven ship. The ship was covered in a floating storm that contained lightning. At that moment, the last two gods, Ares and Agaras, had also returned to the mortal world. Agaras, what is your dissatisfaction with that body that I helped to upgrade? If you are dissatisfied, you don't have to use it. After all, that body has Gaia's stench on it. It will prove to be hard on you. Diana chuckled as she spoke. Gaia was instantly unhappy. She clenched his fists, and the ground beneath her sank by several meters due to the invisible force. Diana, I think it's because your stench is so strong that the Agaras can't stand it. If it were only my power, perhaps Agaras would not be uncomfortable, he might even jump in joy. The divine power of different gods involved different domains. If it was not a god with a similar domain, the divine power would not increase its strength and even weaken due to conflict. That was also the reason why Agaras complained. Gaia, you are so confident. Shouldn't you ask Agaras and see whose fault it is? Fine. You think I'm afraid of you? Gaia, Diana, I can hear your argument from afar. You're arguing like humans. Don't you feel ashamed? Another female voice interrupted the argument between Diana and Gaia. A woman with silver white hair flew down from the sky. It was Sidi, who had taken over Ash's body. HMPH. Diana and Gaia looked at each other and turned their heads away, neither of them looking at the other. Sidi is here as well. Other than the time travelers, all of the gods have gathered together. Let's start our plan now to avoid a long delay. Agaras and Ares, where is that thing? After Sidi appeared, Balder's gaze landed on Agaras and Ares. It's on us. Agaras and Ares replied. Both of them reached out their right hands and inserted them into their chests. After a moment, they did not pull out their hearts. Instead, they pulled out a brilliant chess piece. The chess piece was shaped like a tower. It was as if it had been grabbed from the brightest core of the stars. After it appeared, Even the sun in the sky was suppressed. What are those? Even if it was the first time that King Landhar III had seen those two chess pieces, his eyes could not help but flicker, and he sucked in a breath of cold air. As a peak diamond-level elite, he was not weak. However, after those two chess pieces appeared, he felt a powerful pressure. It was as if those two chess pieces contained an enormous amount of energy, like a planet. After looking at them for a long time, the chess pieces really became bigger in his eyes. They became as big as the stars. He felt like an ant. After shaking his head, the strange feeling disappeared again. These are the chess pieces of the races. To be precise, they are two pieces of the human race's chess pieces. This is something that many races in ancient times risked their race's future to obtain. As Balder casually explained, he extended his right hand toward the two chess pieces that appeared on Agara's and Ares' chests and grabbed them gently. As he moved, the two chess pieces merged in midair and turned into an even bigger chess piece. After the chess pieces left their bodies, the two gods heaved a sigh of relief. They looked much more relaxed. The race chess pieces are something that existed before this world was destroyed and even before life appeared. Their function is to identify the races that live in a world. Only the races that possess the race chess pieces are qualified to live in that world. The races that lost their race chess pieces would be destroyed. Even their descendants or even a drop of the race's blood would not survive. There are many legends about race chess pieces. Most of them are spread throughout the world where the gods live. I won't explain them all. I only need to briefly introduce its effects. Apart from ensuring the existence of the race, it can also be used to enslave the race. As long as the corresponding race chess is planted in the body of a certain person of that race, the same race will be controlled. Even if it were Watson, it would not change. As Balder spoke, he released his right hand that was controlling the race chess pieces. The chess pieces instantly turned into a ray of light and flew across the sky before falling to the ground. It fell to the ground on top of the underground prison where Watson was. When that ray of light flew across the sky, the hearts of all the humans in the royal city, including King Landhar III, were filled with panic. It was as if something was watching them from the shadows. Something terrible was about to happen. On the street not far from the underground prison, the old king was on his way to the Sword Saint's courtyard. He did not go straight there. Instead, he walked and stopped on the road, trying to see as many changes as possible in the capital. He even went to every shop and every deserted alley, which meant that he still needed some time to reach the Sword Saint's courtyard. At that moment, he was standing in front of a weapon stall, admiring the platinum-tier weapons there. Suddenly, he seemed to have sensed something. He raised his head and looked at the sky. A burst of light streaked across the sky. A huge, broken chess piece that was faintly glowing appeared, enveloping the entire area of the royal city. The chess piece was made of starlight. It was so big that it overlapped with the sky. All the people could only see the outline of the chess piece. What is that thing? What a big chess piece! Recently, there have been frequent anomalies in the sky of the capital. Was it caused by Watson, who might not have anything better to do? But is he not currently in prison? Perhaps Watson had nothing better to do in prison, so he created a huge chess piece that could emit light to play with. The discussions in the surroundings entered the ears of the old king, causing him to narrow his eyes. To the residents of the royal city, the appearance of a huge glowing chess piece in the sky did not cause them to panic. During the battle between Watson and Reed, Watson's performance in the match had caused the sky to hold grand scenes like the Divine Kingdom or the Source of Magic. The residents were used to such phenomena. I did not expect the young man would be so popular in the capital. The residents immediately thought of him the moment the phenomenon appeared in the sky of the capital. However, I think he did not cause the phenomenon in the sky. It makes me feel uncomfortable and somewhat familiar. I seem to have seen it somewhere before. Where have I seen it? Stroking his chin, the old king narrowed his eyes and stared at the sky for a long time, unable to leave. In the direction of another street, Nia was wearing a long black dress and carrying 2 large bags of fruits and fresh pastries in her hands as she walked toward the underground prison. After Watson was thrown into prison, she immediately rushed over, despite the obstruction of her family. As Watson's servant, she should accompany Watson when he was suffering in prison. I don't know what Master likes to eat either. I bought all these fruits and pastries according to Charlotte's advice. I hope that Master will be satisfied. As she walked, Nia muttered to herself. Suddenly, the illusion of a huge starlight chesspiece appeared in the sky. It made her subconsciously raise her head. When she saw the scene above her head, her eyes suddenly widened, and the pastries and fruits in her hands fell to the ground, scattering all over. That is, a race chesspiece or a human chesspiece. Within the area covered by that chesspiece, all humans will be enslaved by it. That kind of thing should exist in the divine realm and be controlled by a few god kings. Why would it appear here? Has a god king invaded the world? As Nia muttered, she noticed that a meteor-like light was falling toward the underground prison under the illusion of the huge starlight chesspiece in the sky. That caused her expression to change. She suddenly rushed forward and turned into an illusion, disappearing from where she was. There was only one sentence left in the air. Not good. Master is in danger. Watson was sitting cross-legged on the bed, talking to the old king that he had created using life elements. He wondered, if I time it right, the old king should have arrived at the Sword Saint's courtyard by now. However, I can't rule out the possibility that he betrayed me and did not go to the Sword Saint's courtyard. After all, he is the father of the current king. I just told him about King Landhar III's plan. It was only a part of what I heard. Even if he betrayed me and spread the news, it would not be a big deal. As for the border, now that I'm in prison, King Landhar III must have sent people to check it out. That is inevitable. After all, the border is the border count's territory, and he has always been at odds with King Landhar III. It's normal for the king to check it out. I want King Landhar III to see the border's power and the Black Moon Knights. After he checks it out, I can use the potions I created in the Dragon Clan to strengthen the border. Before leaving the Divine Dragon Star, Watson did not bring the Golden Flash and Charcoal with him. Charcoal had returned to the Tower of Babel and continued to be the 100th level boss. The Golden Flash returned to Mount Creation with the 10 potions he took from the Dragon Lair. After King Landhar III's people had finished exploring the border, they would start mass-producing those potions using the wish for the world rings. That would transform the people on Mount Creation from Platinum-tier angels into dragons, thus becoming a dual race of dragons and angels. According to his instructions, Mount Creation would let the Black Moon Knights patrol the mountain in their angelic form while the others would completely conceal their auras, making King Landhar III believe that only the Black Moon Knights had the angelic form on the Mount Creation. After having that misconception, he could proceed to the next step of his plan. Finally, how could he guarantee that King Landhar III's people would go to Mount Creation, and how could he ensure that King Landhar III would receive false information? That would depend on the intelligence network that he had ordered Elvin to build at Severed Fingers Gang. After he had requested to create the intelligence network at Severed Fingers Gang, it had already been secretly set up in the kingdom. In particular, the Severed Fingers Gang monopolized all the intelligence near the border, ensuring that the king's people had no way of infiltrating it. Even if he had heard the news, it would be the news that the border wanted to spread. From leaving the border to building the Tower of Babel, to building the Dragon Palace, Severed Fingers Gang, and the Divine Dragon Star, all of Watson's efforts had been combined. It had finally allowed his power to have the ability to confront the kingdom head-on. He was thinking about what he should do next to expand the advantage he had built. Before King Landhar III could react, the internal structure of the Holy Dragon Kingdom would have collapsed. At that moment, Watson suddenly felt a wave of unexplained panic in his heart. It was as if something threatening was about to descend on his head. Most elites have a certain level of danger perception. The stronger one was, the more sensitive they would be to danger. At that moment, Watson subconsciously stood up from his bed and dodged to the side. Just as he moved, a stream of light descended from the sky and landed on his right shoulder, sending a piercing pain through it. If he had not dodged, that thing would have landed on the top of his head. What is that? Watson turned his head to look at his shoulder. A broken, glowing chess-piece-shaped thing had wriggled into his body. His shoulder was in great pain, so much so that he could not help but frown, but there was no wound. When he was trying to figure out what was inside his shoulder, he suddenly felt a sense of control. It was as if his body had become someone else's marionette, making him unable to move freely. That strange feeling made Watson's expression change. That was the first time he had felt such a feeling. Subconsciously, he wanted to activate the fusion system and fuse the chess piece in his body with other things to make it disappear. However, when he wanted to activate the fusion system, he was stunned. The chess piece that entered his body had disappeared entirely. No matter how much he scanned for it, he could not sense its location. He had even looked through the two magic sources, chaos and life, but he could not find it. Other than the feeling of someone spying on his fate in someone else's hands, reminding him of the strange situation in his body, he felt like what had just happened was just an illusion. How could that be? Is there something in this world that can't be found after entering a person's body? Watson was a little flustered. Ever since he had transmigrated to that world, he had not been afraid, no matter how powerful the enemy was, because he could fuse them. Even if he had very few resources, he could surpass the strong with just a little accumulation. However, it was different then. That magical chess piece disappeared after entering his body. How could he fuse with something that he could not find? Young Master Watson, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well? While Watson was puzzled, the prison guards outside seemed to have heard his voice. They walked into the cell with flattering expressions and asked respectfully, "I'm fine. You two can leave." Watson waved his hand. The two guards nodded and subconsciously touched the shackles around their necks. With a regretful expression, they turned around and left. They were people controlled by Watson, and they hoped that something would have happened to Watson. He reached out and pressed his arm. Watson looked shocked and uncertain. Then, he gritted his teeth and stabbed his right hand into his throat. With a sound, his throat was pierced, and blood spilled all over the ground. His eyes lost their color, and he turned into a corpse lying on the bed. Blood oozed from his wound. After a while, he sat up again in the bed and rubbed the wound on his throat that was already healing. His expression became more unsightly. He had taken the blessings of the gods and demons, so he would not die. He wanted to use death to test whether the magical chess piece would leave his body after death, but unfortunately, he had failed. Is it because I haven't been dead long enough? Why don't I try dying longer? Watson muttered. At that moment, a piercing sound came from in front of him, followed by a man's calm voice. Watson, you don't have to try it. No matter how long you die, the chess piece will not leave your body. The race chess piece is something that appeared before the creation of the world. Its level is above the rules. A strong person can see the rules, but you can't see the chess piece. Even though I can't see it, you will be under my control. Watson, you should stop struggling. As his voice fell, a man with purple hair appeared in front of Watson. It was Julius, and a few more people appeared in the room after him. They were the gods who had occupied different human bodies. King Landhar III was among them. From the looks of it, you should be one of the 7 gods. 6 of the 7 gods had come for me. You must really think highly of me. His gaze swept past King Landhar III and focused on the 6 people behind him. He could feel that those people were emitting an unusual aura, and there was also Sidi in the crowd. That made Watson instantly confirm his guess. The only thing that he did not expect was the first and second princes with the group. Those two had talked to him all night because of the matter with the throne. Although he did not like how those 2 princes liked to scheme against people, he did not hate them. He did not expect the gods to take over the 2 princes' bodies. King Landhar III was really ruthless. That's right, Watson. You have no way to resist now that the chess piece has taken over your body. Last time, you destroyed my body. This time, it's my turn to own you. Ares, who had taken over the first prince's body, was one of the 6 gods. The blood-red wings on his back flapped, immediately setting off a bloody storm in the room. Then, he stretched out his hand, and a scarlet sword appeared in his hand. He stabbed it in Watson's direction. Although the person in front of him looked different, Watson was still able to determine that the person in front of him was Ares, whom he had fought with previously based on his aura and tone. Watson instinctively wanted to retreat. However, Balder said, "Don't move." Watson immediately lost control of his body and stood there foolishly. He allowed Ares' sword to pierce his chest, causing him to break out in cold sweat from the pain. Not only did Ares' sword have a murderous aura, but it also had a power that could make people lose their minds. That power was corroding Watson's nerves. If it were not for Watson's powerful strength, he would have been completely corroded by that power and become a wild beast. Watson, weren't you pretty strong last time? Why won't you fight back? Ares held the sword in his hand. Just as he was about to open a few more holes in Watson's body to vent his anger, Balder reached out and pressed on Ares' shoulder. Wait a moment. I've allowed you to make a move. I don't intend to let you keep doing that. If you keep making moves, you will destroy Watson's body, and we won't be able to get what we want. What does that have to do with anything? That thing is bound to Watson's soul. Only by disintegrating that brat's soul will we be able to take that thing for ourselves. Ares retorted, but the other gods behind him refuted him. Ares, as the god of war and hunting, your blood has the power to make people go crazy, and it can also control the other party to a certain extent. If you control Watson, doesn't that mean that Watson will belong to you? That's right, Ares. Since we have all descended into the mortal realm, we should follow the original agreement and fight each other until the final victor is decided. Before that, we will attack anyone who wants to occupy Watson. Ares, do you want to be eliminated early? Gaia glanced at Ares and clenched her fists. The ground shook. Sensing Gaia's gaze, Ares was unhappy. He gritted his teeth and dispersed the sword in his hand. Forget it. I'll let that brat have his time. I'll be the one to win in the end anyway. I'll torture him slowly after I win. As the power in Ares' hands faded, the crazy feeling in Watson's body disappeared as well. He let out a sigh of relief. Your name is Ares, right? I feel that it won't be easy for you to obtain the final victory with your strength. Of the 7 gods, I have the most faith in Balder. They said that he was the strongest. The race chess piece that controlled me should also be his handiwork, right? He clearly said that he would not control me before the outcome was decided. What is going on now? If one of you defeats Balder, but he is not willing to hand over the race chess piece, what then? Watson had a hunch that those gods would find trouble with him sooner or later, but he had not expected it to be so soon. Furthermore, he had underestimated the power of those gods. As expected, the elites who could surpass the mortal world and enter the divine realm had their own strengths. At the very least, it was impossible for him to think of something like the race chess piece. He also could not understand how it worked. All the gods turned their gazes to Balder. Their eyes flickered. Balder said, "There's no need to use such a low-tier goading method. Even intelligent humans would not fall for it, let alone gods. Watson, before our duel, if I don't control you, you might use that thing to escape. I swear on my life that if I lose the battle, then the right to use the race chess piece will be transferred to the person who defeated me. At that time, no one will think that I'm breaking the rules. Watson, I'm sorry. It seems like the contract I made with you will be nullified. I did not expect Balder to have such a thing as a race chess piece. Now it seems like it's easier to get that thing from you." Sidi's gaze moved away from Balder as she spoke to Watson with some regrets. Even Sidi, who had previously made a promise, said so. Watson knew that he might not be able to escape that day. He could only rack his brain to think of a way to solve the predicament in front of him. He had never encountered such a troublesome situation since he transmigrated. Just as he was thinking, Ares, who had previously made a move, suddenly extended his right hand to him and said, "What are all of you standing there for? Isn't the one who snatches Watson will be announced as the winner? If all of you don't make a move, then I won't hold back." Chapter 467, Lose Direction. Swoosh, an even faster light flashed by as Ares was about to touch Watson. Agaras appeared to be in the second prince's body. Wind and thunder vines flew out of his body and formed a large ship around him, carrying him to where he instantly appeared in front of Watson. The large ship then pushed Watson up against the prison wall. A massive hole was created with a loud rumble. It was clear that it was an anti-magic material capable of withstanding an attack from a platinum-tier elite. However, there was insufficient space for it to withstand the onslaught of Agar's massive ship. The impact created a massive hole that reached the surface. The gods looked at each other and walked out, one after the other, as they saw the sunlight pouring down through the hole. I was surprised that Agaras was the first to make a move. I expected Ares to be the first to act. We can get Watson regardless of who initiates the attack, as long as we find him and kill him. Agaras is the fastest of us all. It will not be easy to apprehend him. It all depends on who gets lucky. As they left the big hole, the gods moved their shoulders and arms, still talking. The sound of the underground prison being breached reverberated throughout the entire prison at the same time. Many guards rushed to Watson's prison cell under the direction of the warden. What happened? Why is there a loud noise coming from inside the prison cell? Where's Watson? Why is Watson missing? Did you do it? The warden approached the cell door and yelled at the man with his back to him. There was only the prisoner in the cell next door at the time, aside from the man whose back was to him. Under his questioning, the man with his back to him slowly turned his head, revealing King Landhar III's face. The warden was taken aback by what he saw. Your Majesty. He had no knowledge of King Landhar III's arrival at the underground prison. What brought King Landhar III there? King Landhar III looked at him just as he was perplexed. You came at the right time, he said slowly. Watson had escaped from his prison cell. I need you to send people to track him down. But remember to keep it a secret and don't tell the rest of the world. Yes, Your Majesty. The warden nodded after swallowing his saliva. He knew what King Landhar III was thinking. After all, Watson was the kingdom's most powerful genius. It had not even been a day before he escaped the prison after the king threw him in it. That was a slap in the face for King Landhar III. Also, I want to ask you, what's the matter with the prisoner in front of me? Didn't I order you to lock that prisoner in the invisible cell? No matter what he says, you can't let him out, and you can't talk to him. But what is going on now? King Landhar III's expression turned cold as he pointed to the old king sitting on the ground in front of him. He had just entered the prison cell when he noticed the old king sitting next to Watson. His clothes had been washed, and he had trimmed his hair and beard. He did not have the appearance of someone who had been imprisoned for 20 years. The gods were anxious to control Watson, so he did not say anything. At that moment, after Watson was chased away by the gods, he could finally focus his attention on the old king. It had been 20 years since they last met. The old king in front of him was still very similar to what he remembered. His pure white hair and wrinkles resembled him quite a bit. All of that made his eyes shine. Your Majesty, you can't blame us for that. It was Watson. He was the one who let that person out. He even threatened to kill all of us if we did not listen to him. Your Majesty, did you see the shackles on our necks? Watson put them on us. We were forced to do it. The warden knelt on the ground with a plop and pointed at the black shackles on his neck and wailed. Yes, Your Majesty, we were coerced, the others echoed. King Landhar III nodded and said, I understand Watson's strength, and it would have been difficult for you to resist. However, you have failed in your duty, but you will be spared from the death penalty. From now on, each of you will be deducted half a year's salary. If you can't find Watson, you will have to accept a stricter punishment. Do you understand? We understand. All the guards, including the warden, were dejected. It was as if they had lost their loved ones. Since the prisoner has been exposed, it's no longer appropriate for him to continue staying in the prison cell. Bring him to my palace. It just so happens that I have something to ask him. Pointing at the old king, who had been sitting on the ground without moving since the moment he started speaking, King Landhar III flicked his sleeves, turned around, and walked out of the large hole in the prison cell. Father, I have to express my heartfelt apology for locking you up for 20 years. I did not expect Watson to release you so quickly after coming here. He is faster than I expected. However, I can only carry out my plan after the gods have their eyes on Watson. I will need you for this plan, Father. I hope that you can help me and contribute your last bit of strength to that kingdom. When he threw Watson into prison, King Landhar III had already had such a plan in his heart. He put Watson in prison to prevent Watson from escaping and also to save his father in the next cell. He wanted Watson to save his father so that the two of them would meet. Everything was going according to his plan. Soon, King Landhar III left the prison. The warden arranged for the guards to send the old king away. In a short period, the people inside and outside the prison disappeared. At that time, a faint ripple appeared in the air, and Nia's figure appeared in the prison cell. She looked at the big hole in the wall with an ugly expression. I'm still a step late. When those gods entered the prison cell, they conveniently left a magic restriction here. The power of multiple gods mixed together, even I can't break it easily. Muttering to herself, Nia sensed the scent of the gods in the air. After carefully identifying it for a while, a cold light flashed in her eyes. She said, "Found you." Then, she took a step forward and left the place. On the other hand, in Watson's direction, after being hit by the large ship that Agaras had released, Watson felt his mind go blank. He spat out a mouthful of blood. It was as if he had been defenseless against the attack of a god. When he came back to his senses, he was already thousands of meters high in the air. A white cloud streaked past him, giving him a cold aura. "You're awake." Besides him, a dull voice sounded. He turned his head and found himself lying on Agar's large ship made of vines. Agar's looked exactly the same as the second prince, but his expression was completely different. He crossed his arms and sat on the ship, staring at him coldly. He realized that while his body was far away from Balder, he could move freely even though he still felt controlled. The corner of Agar's mouth suddenly rose at that moment. "Watson, do you want to escape? I advise you not to waste your efforts. Before you woke up, I had already opened my divine kingdom. In other words, you are now in my divine kingdom." As if to verify Agar's words, in the sky thousands of meters high, the moving clouds began to converge in the middle, turning into a large ship made of white clouds. On the large ship, there were storms blowing in different directions everywhere. "It seems like I really have no room to resist. I surrender." Watson raised his hands. He could feel that after the storm in the sky blew in different directions, the energy in his body became chaotic and not under his control. They collided with each other, preventing him from using his energy smoothly. However, it was completely different from the previous time. It was clear that at that time, Agar's was using his true power. Those who could become gods were not ordinary people. Watson relied on the fusion system and was considered the most outstanding genius in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. However, compared to the gods, he was still a certain distance away. He had never become a god. If one's life level had not reached that level, regardless of whether it was their vision or thinking, they would be restricted by their mortal body. They would not be able to reach the same height as the gods. If he wanted to leave that place, he could not do it on his own. If he could use the race chess piece in his body to lure Balder toward them, Balder and Agar's might fight over him, and perhaps he could escape then. "Eat this." As if he could guess what Watson was thinking, Agar's took out a ball of black viscous liquid from his chest and stuffed it into Watson's mouth, saying, "This is a part of my true form as a god. It will gradually absorb you within a day, allowing me to occupy your body." "I know what you're thinking. You're thinking you can lure Balder here to fight me. Then, you can take the opportunity to escape. Am I right?" Watson was silent. "Your idea is very good, but unfortunately, that idea can't be realized. As a god in charge of storms and navigation, the essence of my ability is direction. I can constantly change direction, making it impossible for people to identify my position. I can even change the direction of my attack, just like this." A sharp vine stretched out from Agar's body and stabbed at his face. Before the vine reached his face, an arrow made of starlight suddenly appeared on the vine. That caused the vine to move involuntarily in the direction of the arrow, brushing past his face. "Watson, when you fell into a deep sleep, I had already applied the same power to your body. If you don't believe me, you can look down." Watson lowered his head and found many glowing arrows had appeared on his body. Each arrow shone with the colors of the stars, pointing in different directions. Without a doubt, as long as Agar's activated those arrows, his body would be pulled in different directions and torn into pieces. "Agar's, can you tell me your ability?" Watson asked, after hesitating for a moment. He could see that the god in front of him was different from the enemies he had faced before. He was very shrewd. Such a clever enemy would have no reason to reveal his ability to do nothing. "You won't be able to live much longer, so there's no harm in telling you. Besides, although I want to occupy your body, I don't want you to suffer too much. I want the thing in your body to be completely bound to your soul and body. Otherwise, I would need to take that thing out. You don't even need to be imprisoned here." Agar's showed a pitiful expression. He sighed as if he sympathized with Watson's suffering. "You might not believe me now, but don't worry. After I obtain the thing in your body, I will definitely think of a way to resurrect you. I am a god. With my ability and the help of that thing, I might be able to find a way to make your soul indestructible and possess other bodies. That way, I can get what I want, and you won't die. We will all be happy. So don't think about asking the other gods for help. Even if you can escape this place, the other gods will catch you. They may not be as merciful as I am, and they may not help you." Watson thought about it seriously for a moment and nodded. "What you said makes sense. Anyway, I've already been tricked and can't escape. It's my fate to be slaughtered by the gods. It would be better if I didn't have to die. Those words were not superficial but came from the bottom of his heart. Watson could feel the sincerity in Agar's words, and he was no longer as disgusted with Agar's as before. Instead, he was somewhat grateful. Seemingly satisfied with Watson's response, Agar's nodded. What we need to do next is to float high in the sky for 1 day. After 1 day, you will be mine. I will take your body and leave this world. Even if Balder uses you as a racial chess piece, it will be useless. The effectiveness of the racial chess pieces between the two worlds will be significantly weakened. Agar's and Watson chatted casually as if they were old friends who had reunited after so many years. Their expressions were relaxed, and they did not look like enemies at all. Time passed by, and soon an hour had passed. Agar's, you mean that before you became a god of the Holy Dragon Kingdom, you were also a cultivator? Watson asked curiously. Agar's nodded. That's right. In the 12th era, I left the world to become a god. I became a god relatively late. Most of the 7 gods are related to this world. Otherwise, we would not have chosen this world as the place for us to absorb our faith. The earliest among us should be Balder. They said that he became a god in the 3rd era. Watson was not simply chatting with Agar's. Instead, he was asking for information regarding the gods. As for his questions, Agar's carefully explained them. How do you gods interfere with the mortal world? Other than bestowing blessings and absorbing faith, what else can you do? For example, can you see what happens in the mortal world through the divine realm? When Watson asked again, he reached out and scratched his neck as if it was itchy. The starlight arrowhead covering his neck fell off, revealing a piece of dark green skin that was beating slowly. Watson did not notice that. Agar's saw it but pretended not to see it. He narrowed his eyes and said, "Gods can't enter the mortal realm. Only through the prayers of devout believers can we see images related to the content of the prayers. We can't obtain information about the world directly, unless we reincarnate as a child of God or use this method to carry our power into the bodies of others and descend into the world with the power of projection." I see. I have another question. Just as he was about to ask the next question, the ship suddenly shook. The hull seemed to have been attacked by someone. That made Agar's, who had been leisurely answering the question, suddenly stand up. I have already spread my power around the divine kingdom. I even carved the lost arrow in the sky and white clouds using the Loan language. Even though they are gods, they won't be able to break through and find me so easily. And before they find me, I can carve a new lost arrow and leave this place. Who broke through all my defenses in an instant? Agar's muttered with an unsightly expression. He raised his head and looked around. Countless arrowheads appeared around the huge divine kingdom that had originally gathered around him like a large ship. A powerful force quickly froze those arrowheads. Then, a young girl in a black dress appeared in midair. Her cold gaze looked past Agar's and landed on Watson, who was on the large ship. "Master, I did not arrive on time when you were suffering. That is my negligence as a servant. Don't worry, I will apologize to you after I rescue you." First, she spoke to Watson respectfully. Then, Nia extended her right hand toward Agar's. Molecular deceleration. All the energy in the world stopped operating. A layer of transparent frost appeared out of thin air as if it wanted to freeze the world as a whole. Agar's was frozen before he could react. Nia took the opportunity to teleport to the frozen ship. She asked, "Master, are you okay?" "Nia, Agar's is not a bad person. Even though he captured me, he did not attack me. Instead, he wanted to help me find a new body. Be gentle and don't kill him." Nia stared at Watson with a strange expression. She shook her head. "Master, it seems like the enemy has attacked you." She patted Watson's body and used molecular deceleration. The dense arrowheads covering Watson's body froze, turning into a thin layer of stickers that floated downward from Watson's body. Watson's expression first fell into a daze, then he revealed a shocked expression and broke out in cold sweat. Chapter 468. War of the Gods. I was talking to Agar's just now. And I even said that Agar's was a good person. What's wrong with me? Watson muttered softly. Agar's had captured him with bad intentions. Furthermore, when Agar's said that he would find him a new body, he had been lying. However, Watson had believed him then. It was as if someone had forcibly changed his mind. He no longer felt like that. That was his ability. It seems that he can change not only a person's physical sense of direction but also the direction of a person's thoughts. Nia explained, that ability is not rare among gods. In the past, many gods could control the minds of others, making those people do what they wanted. They even thought that they were doing things based on their will. However, there is a flaw in that ability. They can't use it on people with a strong will. Otherwise, it would cause the other party's will to collapse. Quote, Watson recalled the short time he had spent with Agaras. Soon, he found the moment his thoughts were reversed. That was when Agaras explained his ability to him. Agaras said that he could make people lose their sense of direction. He even verified it. Watson had wondered why Agaras had told him that. He did not think that Agaras' ability could make people lose their direction and their sense of direction. After that, Agaras continued to express goodwill toward him. It was all to give him a psychological hint. Whenever he had bad thoughts about Agaras, the god would use his ability to change them into good thoughts. That was why he felt that Agaras was not bad and even asked Nia to let him off. As expected of a god, he planted a psychological hint for me without making a fuss. I almost fell for it. After understanding what the Agaras had done, Watson felt a lingering fear. He had used the Starlight Tier tool that he had fused to kill the projection of two gods easily. It made him feel that gods were very average. He had given up on that idea. Nia, take me away from here. Watson was about to step forward when he suddenly coughed. He felt a sharp pain in his neck. He looked down and saw a layer of ice spreading along his neck and quickly covering his chest. Opposite him, the ice on Agar's body gradually cracked, revealing Agar's calm figure. Fortunately, a part of my body was placed on Watson's body. I can transfer all the damage I received to you through the Lost Direction spell. Otherwise, I would not be feeling good from that attack just now. Young lady, it seems like the energy contained in your body is not ordinary. Clearly, it is some kind of divine power. And the ability you used just now, if I'm not mistaken, is molecular deceleration. In the entire deity world, there are not many people who can use that ability. You must be a reincarnated child of God. I advise you not to make a move against me. To be able to reincarnate as a child of God, you must have paid quite a price. In addition, your current body is only at peak gold tier. The power you can use might not be as good as mine. This is the grudge between the Holy Dragon Kingdom's gods and Watson. I hope that you will not get involved and lose your life in vain. Agaras was still trying to persuade her, but Nia did not listen to him at all. She stretched out her hand and said, Molecular acceleration. A bright light burst out of Nia's hand. That light was very dazzling and swept over Aguirre's body. Agar's body was covered with bright arrowheads from different directions. Unfortunately, those arrowheads could not deflect Nia's attack at all. The powerful light wave submerged the body and shot straight into the sky. I've told you, young lady, your attacks can't affect me. Since you insist on fighting with me, then I can only kill you with no mercy. Agaras walked out of the light beam unscathed. The second prince's face was ice cold. He only stretched out his hand, and a symbol appeared on the greenish-black skin on Watson's neck. Immediately after that, Watson's body involuntarily flew toward him and was caught in his hand. During that process, Watson could not help but spit out blood. It seemed like the attack that Agaras had released did not land on himself, but on Watson's body instead. Master, with a cry, Nia's eyes burst with killing intent, as if she was about to attack. At that moment, Agar's palm touched Watson's neck. Don't move. If you come over, I'll break Watson's neck right now. Break my neck? If I die, you won't be able to get what you want. Besides, didn't you promise to help me find a new body after you took over my body? If I die here, how am I going to complete my reincarnation? It's okay, kid, I know you won't die. You don't have to lie to me. Furthermore, I don't have to act with you now. I have no plans to help you complete your reincarnation. Seriously? Then I won't have any psychological burden to attack you. Watson coughed up blood before a smile appeared on his face. Watson, you want to attack me? Stop joking. You're just a mortal. How can you defeat a god like me? The last time you defeated me, it was because my host body could not stand it. And I wasn't serious. You did not defeat me, just the corpse that I occupied. Agaras had a disdainful look on his face. At that point, he was very serious, displaying the complete power of a god. Watson, don't tell me you want to use the thing in your body to fuse with my body that I just fed you and then get rid of my control over you? I advise you to stop thinking about it. The body I fed you has been incubated for an hour, and now it's completely wrapped up in the lost direction, disappearing into your body. It's like a race chess piece that you can't find no matter how hard you look. I have to say that, as a god, your ability and intelligence to see through people's hearts truly amazes me. However, you guessed wrongly. Who said that I want to fuse the power in my body? Watson chuckled and stared at Agar's chest. You mean? Wait a moment. Agar seemed to have remembered something. His expression changed, and he wanted to stop it, but it was too late. Watson stretched his hand toward his chest and said, "Fusion system, activate." As he spoke, Agar's chest exploded. A dark red shadow of the moon and a thick earthen yellow energy as heavy as the earth rose and fused in midair. It turned into a half-golden and half-red ball. Two slender women's hands suddenly reached out from the ball and landed on Agar's body, one on the left and the other on the right. They smashed Agar's body into pieces. An image of a god wrapped in a storm, holding a harp in his hand, and with a dragon tail behind his back, emerged from the shattered body, shouting in the air. Gaia, Diana, you too be *TCHES. You intentionally left divine power in my body when I descended. So this is the time to use it. You all conspired against me. I won't let you off. Agaras, who asked you to be so stupid? You clearly know that we left divine power in your body, yet you still dare to be the first to attack Watson? That's right. You may think that you can suppress our divine power, but don't forget that Watson has that ability. It can increase our divine power several times, or even 10 times. Naturally, it can destroy your body. Out of the kingdom's 7 gods, you were the fastest and had the ability to make one lose one's way. You were the most difficult to deal with. Now that you've disappeared, Watson is ours. Gaia and Diana's voices rang out in midair. Following that, the golden and dark red spheres shattered, revealing their figures. After watching Agar's soul cursed a few times, forced to bounce out of that world, they laughed. Watson, you did well. It was not in vain that we told you about that when we entered your cell. It seems that compared to Agaras, you chose us. It's no wonder. One of us is the goddess of moon and love, while the other is the goddess of earth and fertility. We will definitely treat you very gently. Gaia and Diana stood side by side. They did not seem to be bickering with each other. I might have to disappoint you, my 2 goddesses. I will not choose Agaras or you. My body is mine. Watson rubbed his neck. As Agaras left, the body of the god that entered his body fell off automatically. Before it fell off, he used the system to fuse it into his body. Congratulations, Master, for the successful fusion. You have obtained the Starlight tier ability, Lost Direction, Storm, and Navigation Divine Kingdom. Starlight tier ability. The Lost Direction. Effect. Has the ability to change the direction of anything or even creatures. It can only be activated by touches. Starlight tier ability. Storm and Navigation Divine Kingdom. Effect. Summons a ship that is entangled by a storm. It can collide with the enemy and cause large-scale damage. It can also be used to escape at a breakneck speed. After fusing with Agar's body, Watson was like the last time he ate the remains of the god of poison. That instantly gave him the ability to control his direction. After learning through King Landhar III that the gods desired the thing in his body and wanted to hunt him, he had been looking for a way out. That was the way. He had found it. If the gods wanted to pursue him, he had to see them personally. That would give him the chance to fuse with them. The gods were like hunters who hunted him, and at the same time, they were the prey he hunted. Watson, do you think that you have a chance of escaping from the 2 of us? Gaia and Diana, the 2 goddesses, had disdainful expressions on their faces, but there was no contempt in their eyes. Without batting an eyelid, they had already moved to Watson's front and back, blocking Watson's escape routes. Not alone. Master still has my help. Nia walked to Watson's side and extended her right hand in the direction of Gaia. Molecular acceleration. Swoosh. A beam of light that could pierce through the world appeared and hit Gaia's body, sending Gaia flying far away. After that, Nia reached out to grab Watson, and with a flash, they left the place. You want to run? Diana spread the dragon wings on her back, and numerous dense purple lightning bolts appeared on her body, causing her to turn into a stream of light and chase after them. That was because she possessed the purple lightning dragon's body, so not only could she use the power of a god, but she could also use the power of the dragon. With the support of divine power and the power of the dragon, Diana quickly arrived behind Nia. Just as she was about to catch up to Nia, Watson turned around and stretched his hand toward her. Lost direction. Dense arrowheads appeared on Diana's body, pointing in different directions. Each arrowhead emitted light, causing Diana's body to spin in midair. Her face was filled with confusion. That is Agar's ability. It's not strange to use that thing to control Agar's power, but Agar's power needs to come into contact with a person before it can take effect. Watson, when did you touch me? Thinking quickly, Diana recalled the time when she and Gaia appeared. Watson had fused the divine power that they had left in Agar's body, and the corner of her lips curled up. Was that the time? Break him. Diana was stopped in her tracks, and Gaia's voice suddenly came from the sky. Gaia descended from the sky, her arms charred black and emitting green smoke. She had forcefully blocked Nia's attack, and as Gaia descended, her body grew bigger and bigger. She became a giant, thousands of meters tall. Her figure covered the entire sky. Her finger was as big as a house. She whistled and went toward Watson. Storm and navigation, divine kingdom. Watson's feet paused. An illusory ship made of starlight appeared. It was surrounded by a storm. It brought him and Nia and turned into a streak of light. They flew into the distance and dodged Gaia's attack. DMN it, if we delay any longer, the other gods will come. Quickly chase after them. Diana summoned a dark red moon and used the light of the dark red moon to melt all the arrowheads on her body. She quickly chased in Watson's direction. In the sky, there were two streaks of green and dark red light chasing after each other. The speed of the green light was obviously faster, and it quickly pulled away from the dark red light behind it. Just as it was about to shake off the dark red light behind it, something happened. Boom! Watson, I've found you. Where are you going? With a loud bang, a black hole exploded in the sky. Countless blood-red arrows fell from the sky, covering the direction where Watson had escaped. The sharp arrows were covered with a smell that made people go crazy, and it made Watson's face turn ugly. He stopped the advance of the storm and navigation divine kingdom. He flipped the divine kingdom over and used it as a shield to block the attacks of the blood-red arrow rain. After the blood-red arrow rained down on them, Ares' figure appeared in the sky. He held a longbow in his hand. The bright red wings on his back made him look like a red angel who spread death and war. It looks like Agaras has returned to the divine realm. Watson, I am deeply impressed by your strength. You are able to kill a god in such a short period. However, that will be all for now. Not far away from Ares, Baldur's figure also appeared. With a calm expression, Watson continued to mutter to himself. There are 4 gods. Other than Seti, all the other gods are here. Seti might also be hiding somewhere. Even with Nia's help, it's not easy for me to escape from those 4 gods. Furthermore, after the incident with Agaras, they will be more careful when dealing with me. What should I do? Should I summon the Dragon Kings to help me? After he transformed them, the Dragon Kings were all promoted to dragon gods, especially Nidhogg, who was far more powerful than ordinary dragon gods. If he summoned Nidhogg, he might be able to fight against the 4 gods. However, the price for doing so was that Nidhogg would be rejected by the world and enter the divine realm. Watson was calculating the gains and losses in his heart. Suddenly, he saw the 4 gods surrounding him split into 2 teams to go against him. Gaia, Diana, and Ares were on the first team, while Baldur was on another team by himself. What are you doing? Baldur had occupied Julius's body. His slender eyebrows were raised, and the corner of his mouth dropped. Baldur, I'm sorry. Everyone knows that you are the strongest among us, and you also hold the race chess piece. If we let you survive until the end, none of us will be your match. So, while there are still enough of us, we will eliminate you first, Diana said with a twinkle in her eyes. Oh, even Ares joined you guys. When did you guys discuss this? I didn't even know about it. Did you guys discuss it when I came here alone? Baldur muttered to himself, it doesn't matter anymore. No matter when you guys discuss it, the result is the same. You guys can attack together. Baldur, even if you are the leader of the 7 gods, you will not be able to withstand the attacks from the 3 of us. You are too proud. Ares laughed coldly. Before he could finish his sentence, he was suddenly hit in the face. His nose broke. No one saw the attack. However, Ares was sent flying backward as fresh blood splattered in the air. Then, Balder's figure disappeared from where he stood. He reappeared where Ares had just stood and slowly retracted his fist. "Let's fight then. Ares, you talk too much nonsense. Gaia, let's attack together," Diana shouted. The huge, dark red moon in the sky shone down with thousands of rays of light, trapping Balder like a cage. Meanwhile, Gaia maintained her huge body. Her hands were pressed together as if she was swatting a fly. She slapped Balder heavily. "I am the god of light, and I control all the light in the world. Moonlight is also a type of light. Isn't using moonlight to deal with me just showing off?" Balder spoke indifferently. When the dark red moonlight poured down from the sky fell, they were all repelled. At the same time, he stretched his arms outward and supported himself on both sides of his body. Clashing with Gaia's hands, a loud bang burst out, forcefully blocking Gaia's attack. One god against three gods, Balder still displayed an invincible demeanor. Chapter 469. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. In a simple thatched cottage in the Holy Dragon Kingdom's capital. That was the slums of the capital. The people who lived there were poor people without money or power. At that moment, two young children were surrounding an old man in the thatched cottage. A statue of a god was placed on the table in front of the old man. The statue looked like it was wearing shining golden armor. Gears of different sizes were floating on its back. Its face was handsome, and its eyes were filled with love and all-encompassing light. "Great god of light, Balder, please bless our family to live peacefully this year. Bless us with a healthy life. If the taxes collected by the kingdom can be reduced by 30%, it will be even better." The old man put his hands together and prayed sincerely to the statue. After praying, he even stretched out his right hand and drew a cross on his chest. "Grandpa, is that god effective? I feel like you're praying to him every day, but I don't see our lives getting better." The younger of the two little boys around him curled his lips. The old man smiled and reached out to pat the little boy's dirty hair. "Don't underestimate that god. He is the god of light, Balder. His authority is to control the light. Other than that, he also controls hope. In the past, the demoness church, which dominated the kingdom and caused the Holy Dragon Kingdom to fall into darkness, was destroyed by the gods led by Balder. Other than that, you were in a bad state when you were born. I prayed to Balder, and you got better. You can choose not to believe in the other 6 gods, but you must believe in the god of light, Balder. It doesn't matter if the wishes I prayed for don't come true. Many people place their hopes in the god of light. He might not be able to give priority to my wish. As mortals, we have to understand the gods." The young child did not seem to buy the old man's words. He was still pouting. "The reason my brother and I were able to survive was probably due to our tenacious vitality. It has nothing to do with the so-called gods. If that god of light is really powerful, then let that sculpture shine. That way, I will believe that he has divine power and not some imaginary thing made up by others." Just as the youth's voice fell, the old man shook his head and was about to explain something. Swish! Suddenly, the statue of the god placed vibrated. Immediately after, a gentle light appeared on it. The light turned from gentle to dazzling and lit up the entire house. "The god of light, Lord Balder, has responded to our wishes. Peter, he heard what you said. Praise the merciful God and guide my ignorant child." The old man hurriedly knelt on the ground and prayed to the glowing statue of the god of light. The child was also shocked by the scene in front of him. He opened his mouth but could not speak. At the same time, in the cathedral at another part of the royal city. "Your Eminence, the statues of the 7 gods of the Holy Dragon Kingdom have been shaking. There are different colors of light bursting out from them. What does that mean?" In the Hall of the Gods, where the 7 sculptures were placed, a red-robed archbishop and a few of his followers were looking at everything in front of them in astonishment. Among the 7 sculptures of the gods, other than the 7th sculpture of the time traveler, the sculptures of the other 6 gods were emitting a surging light. With each breath, it seemed like those sculptures were about to come to life. Those sculptures are the symbols of the gods and also the channel for us to communicate with them. Judging from the aura emitted by those sculptures, I can feel the aura and fury of war. It seems that the gods are at war. The red-robed archbishop stretched his hand outward and drew a cross on his chest. Sensing the aura emitted by the sculptures of the gods, he said carefully, "The gods are at war. How is that possible?" The 7 gods had always been united and harmonious, protecting the Holy Dragon Kingdom together. Compared to the other kingdoms, the Holy Dragon Kingdom has 7 gods. Just the number alone is enough to crush them. There is no reason for the gods to start a war now. Is there anything that can make them fight each other? A kingdom usually only had 1 god, at most 2. That was because too many gods would cause internal strife due to a lack of believers. The Holy Dragon Kingdom had 7 gods, which had always been the pride of the kingdom's priests. In the past, the demoness church had 1 god, the primordial demoness. However, after the demoness church's fall, King Landhar III supported the kingdom's 7 gods. The advantage of having many gods was that the people of the Holy Dragon Kingdom could always find a god that they liked. If one god was not satisfactory, then they could choose another god. For example, there were always gods that believed in war and hunting. In some port cities near the sea, the residents believed in the god of storms and navigation, Agaras. The women believed in the goddess of moon and love, Diana, while the farmers mostly believed in the goddess of earth and fertility, Gaia. Some of them even believed in multiple gods. In other kingdoms, the masses might be divided into 2 groups. One believed in gods, and the other did not. However, in the Holy Dragon Kingdom, the masses were different. Most of the people there believed in gods. The only difference was that they believed in different gods. Crack. Before the archbishop could open his mouth to answer, the statue of Agaras, which symbolized the storm and voyage, cracked. Then, the crack expanded. Agaras's statue, standing on a big ship with a harp in one hand and an arrowhead in the other, seemed to be giving directions to others. Then, he turned into pieces on the ground. As the statue shattered, the energy that permeated his body also dissipated. Did the statue shatter? The people in the church stared blankly at that scene, their expressions turned ugly. That was not a good omen. Were the gods really fighting each other? If it is really a battle between the gods, does it mean that there will only be 1 god left? I wonder who will be the last remaining god. What if the god that the people believe in disappears? A few priests muttered to themselves anxiously. At that moment, the archbishop reacted and waved his hand. Quick! Send someone to the other churches in the capital to see if they have experienced something similar. Also, get someone to go to the palace and tell His Majesty about this. Let His Majesty decide what we should do next. Then, the archbishop turned his head to look at the 5 glowing sculptures in front of him. If there is really going to be a battle between the gods, then there is only 1 god who will survive in the end, and that is the god of light, Balder. Why do you say that, Your Eminence? The other gods are not weak either, especially the god of war and hunting, Ares. Couldn't he defeat Balder in a fight? Furthermore, the battles between the gods are very similar to the battles between the humans. There will be cliques. If the other gods were to join forces, even the god of light, Balder, might not be able to win, right? A priest who had not left the church asked doubtfully after hearing the archbishop's words. The red-robed archbishop shook his head. That's because you don't understand the power of the god of light, Balder. Of course, there are some secrets about the gods that only the Pope and the archbishop can access. I can't tell you too much, but I can tell you that Balder is not on the same level as the other gods, even if the other gods were powerful. At least, it's impossible to use numbers to suppress Balder because he alone is an army. Is the god of light, Balder, that powerful? The priest clearly did not believe him. At that moment, more than half of the guards suddenly rushed in from outside and shouted anxiously, "Oh, no. Your Eminence, please go out and take a look." Just now, a few figures that look like the incarnations of gods appeared in the sky above the capital. They are fighting. What did you say? The red-robed archbishop cried out in surprise. He did not hesitate and rushed out. He looked up at the sky and saw several black figures fighting. One of the black figures was Gaia, who was thousands of meters tall. There were also a few human shadows that he could not see clearly. However, the blood-stained divine kingdom that they had used in the shattered space and the dark red moon that they had summoned seemed to fit with the characteristics of the gods. In the sky, several thousand meters above the royal city. At that moment, Watson and Nia were floating in the air. They were witnessing a great battle between the gods. That was the first time Watson had seen a godly existence fighting in front of him. The chaos and scale of the scene far exceeded his expectations. Ares, the god of war and hunting, had joined forces with the goddess of moon and love, Diana, and Gaia, the goddess of earth and fertility. They stood in three corners, respectively, to besiege Balder. The attacks landed on Balder's body like a storm but were blocked by Balder's light shield. Balder was very powerful, but he was only one god after all. Plus, he was facing attacks from three gods. In just a few minutes, the shield made of light on his body cracked several times, and the armor on his body fractured as well. There were wounds on his body. Everyone, work harder. As long as we break the body that Balder occupies and force him back to the divine realm, then victory is ours. The void around Ares continued to shatter. In the cracked black hole, weapons stained with the blood of gods or other creatures flew out and occupied the entire sky. Many of those weapons were at starlight tier. Ares' eyes would sparkle as he spoke, his face filled with killing intent. The number of believers he had in the kingdom as the god of war and hunting was the least. It was not because he was weak but because the seven gods had an agreement. The number of faith a god could absorb depended on their abilities. For example, Agaras, the god of storms and navigation, absorbed the faiths of the fishermen and seafarers in the coastal areas, while the goddess of moon and love absorbed the faiths of most of the women in the capital. Those were all significant sources of faith. The faith he absorbed came from the kingdom's army. Since the Holy Dragon Kingdom had been living in peace for many years, the kingdom's army was also very lax. There were not many people who believed in him sincerely. That caused him to be ranked last among the seven gods. That made him unhappy for a long time. Compared to Balder, who was known as the leader of the seven gods, he was a god who did not have a stable source of faith. However, unlike him, Balder had a power called hope and was in charge of the light. The power of hope is really convenient. As long as a person is in a desperate situation or when they encounter difficulties, they can pray to Balder in exchange for the so-called hope so that they can break out of the predicament. Using that method to deceive the faith of ignorant humans, Balder's method is really despicable. I really don't see how he resembles the god of hope. Ares muttered softly, his words filled with dissatisfaction toward Balder. He was jealous of Balder. He was obviously the same as Balder. Both of them did not have a fixed source of faith, but why was Balder able to absorb more faiths than him? He was not satisfied, so he joined hands with other gods to defeat Balder. Then, he would defeat the other gods, and occupy Watson's body. As long as he obtained that thing, he would be able to roam the divine realm. He would no longer need to treat the other gods with fake sincerity. Even if he had to give up on absorbing the faith from the people in the Holy Dragon Kingdom, it would not matter. Just as Ares was thinking about that, Balder tore off the broken armor on his body and threw it away, revealing a muscular body full of injuries. I am tired of defending myself. I will not be polite anymore. If I had acted earlier, I would have been able to explain. I would like to apologize to everyone. You have risked your lives descending from the divine realm to this place. The outcome of this battle has already been decided from the start. If I had explained it to all of you earlier, then this would not have happened. Balder, what are you talking about? Diana snorted in dissatisfaction. With a wave of her hand, a flaming meteorite fell from the sky and smashed toward Balder's head. Then, she stretched her fingers outward. Balder's body was immediately added with hundreds of gravitational forces. As the goddess who commanded the moon, Diana controlled the moonlight and other moon attributes, such as gravity and the ability to see and summon the moon to the ground. At the same time, Gaia also attacked. Two huge palms that were even more powerful than the mountain range grabbed Balder. After Balder dodged the attack, Gaia's palm turned to the huge burning meteorite that Diana summoned. Holding the meteorite in her hand, Gaia was like a pitcher, throwing the meteorite at an even faster speed and strength. The falling meteorites, coupled with Gaia's throwing, caused the clouds in the sky to be scattered. The meteorite shells whistled as they fell into the kingdom, creating many holes around the capital. A meteorite hit a forest not far from the capital. The burning airwave had turned the forest into ashes. There was also a large lake, which was initially a famous tourist spot near the capital. After the meteorite hit it, the lake water instantly evaporated. The water mist spread in all directions. Even a few bridges connecting to the center of the lake had shattered. A meteorite also exploded on the 9 huge walls surrounding the capital. The crushed stones rolled toward the capital, destroying half of the city walls. The people in the capital were wailing non-stop. Initially, the gods were still concerned about the people in the capital. However, when they realized that Baldur was about to lose and the opportunity to obtain Watson was right in front of them, they could not care too much about that. Compared to Watson, the so-called faith was trash. Facing the combined attack of the 3 gods, Baldur continuously dodged while in midair. However, he was unable to escape the combined skills of Gaia and Diana. The meteorite that Gaia shot out increased its speed and strength, and the Earth's power caused the size of the meteorite to fluctuate. Even though Baldur was swift, he was still hit by a huge meteorite. The sound of his bones breaking and crushed reverberated through the sky. "He's hit. Baldur is done for," Diana cheered. Her joint technique with Gaia was called the chain planet catapult. She created the meteoroid, then Gaia threw it into the air and imbued it with immense power. Then, Gaia imbued it with gravity to track the enemy. No matter how fast their enemies were, they would not be able to escape it. As the number of meteoroids increased, they would hit their enemies eventually. When Diana smiled, Gaia heaved a sigh of relief. Her body shrank to the size of an average human. She flew to Diana's side and began to look at Ares vigilantly. Meanwhile, Ares's eyes flashed as he stopped what he was doing. Baldur had already been defeated. The next battle would be between the 3 of them. Just as they were thinking about that, Baldur, who was about to be vaporized entirely by the huge meteorite, suddenly stretched out a hand and snapped his fingers. With a muffled sound, the entire world had changed. Gears of different sizes appeared behind Baldur. Those gears were biting and pulling each other to form a gear world. Then, voids suddenly opened behind Baldur. The doors emitted a powerful and attractive force, attracting the meteors in the sky, including the one that hit Baldur. Before the meteors entered the doors, they were shattered by some kind of beam shot out from the void. Then, huge warships floated out from behind the doors. Those warships were purple and covered in an energy field. The warships were shaped like a shuttle, and there was a long cannon barrel on each side of the warship. The front part of the cannon barrel emitted beams of light. It was clear that those beams did the magic that had just shattered the meteorites. After shattering the meteorites, the cannons began to move toward the center. They fused and turned into an even larger cannon hole. Just the scattered cannon barrels were enough to shatter the meteorites that were like stars. One could imagine how powerful the fused cannonballs were. All the warships are on standby. Divine Power Star destroyer cannons are ready, preparing to fire in 10 seconds. At least 10,000 warships appeared in the sky. They were several hundred meters in size and covered the entire sky. Ares and the other 2 gods were surrounded. What the hell is that? Ares stared at the tens of thousands of warships floating above his head, disbelief written all over his face. Are those from the legendary Third Era, the Void Dynasty created by humans imitating the technology of the gods? Diana exclaimed. That's right, you guessed it right. Baldur waved his hand in response to the gods' questions, and the front section of warships immediately lit up. Tens of thousands of blazing rays gathered, and each ray of light had enough power to pierce through the surface. If fired simultaneously, the 3 gods and the capital would be destroyed, turning into a blank space. The magma in the core of the earth would flood and submerge the earth, causing severe damage to the kingdom. As the god of light, it seemed inappropriate for Baldur to do such a thing. However, there was nothing wrong with him doing such a thing. Before he became one of the Holy Dragon Kingdom's guardians, he had another identity, the Prince of the Third Era's Void Dynasty. At that time, the Third Era had already reached its end, and the Void Dynasty's influence had reached its peak. They were no longer satisfied with staying in that world, so they attacked the divine realm. In front of the gods, even the most advanced void fleet of mankind was still vulnerable to them, and the humans had lost the gods' protection, so there was no way for them to fight against the gods. Hence, the king ordered Baldur, who was still a prince, to become the new king and lead the remaining Void Dynasty's soldiers to search for a place to live in the divine realm. Baldur did not disappoint his father's expectations. Not only did he find a habitable star for the Void Dynasty in the divine realm, but he also cultivated the sovereign tier, allowing the power of the gods to fuse with the technology of the Void Dynasty. In the past, when he was in the Void dynasty, Balder was called the Son of Light, and after he transformed into a god, he was called the God of Light. In the history of mankind, the Third Era's Void dynasty was destroyed because they overestimated themselves and challenged the gods after they became powerful, resulting in a fault in the magic technology of human history. No one knew that the people of the Void dynasty were not destroyed. Instead, they took the initiative to leave the world and took all the technology with them. The reason I am called the God of Hope is not that I forced the honor on myself, but because the people of the Void dynasty gave me that title. My hope is for my people, not for the world. So for the glory of the Void dynasty, let everything dissipate under the light, Balder muttered to himself. Every god had a divine kingdom, and in those divine kingdoms lived believers who provided faith to the god. To ordinary gods, those believers' role was only to provide faith. However, he was different. His divine kingdom was inhabited by many people from the former Void dynasty. Many of those people's strength was close to that of gods. In addition, they possessed techniques comparable to gods, and with the support of his divine power for so many years, those people had already transformed his divine kingdom into something that could be called a weapon of war. His people were not only believers, they were also soldiers. The two most powerful weapons he had obtained in his divine kingdom were the gears he had displayed behind his back called gears of machinery and wisdom. Tens of thousands of warships were released at that moment. Each of the warships possessed power comparable to gods. He had the help of tens of thousands of godly soldiers. Meanwhile, Ares, Gaia, and Diana were only 3 gods. 3 against 10,000, they were not on the same level at all. Balder, you despicable fellow. You actually hid such a powerful force in your divine kingdom, yet you never told us about it. It seems that you have never treated us as your companions. Quote, Ares was shocked by the scene of tens of thousands of warships firing their cannonballs simultaneously. A miserable expression appeared on his face, and in the end, he did his best to summon all the ancient weapons from the many spatial cracks that appeared around him. Countless ancient weapons of the Starlight tier flew into the sky like locusts, turning into a group of meteors. Unfortunately, in front of the warships, weapons of the Starlight tier were like toothpicks. When they touched the surface of the warships, they were deflected away. After that, they were drowned by the divine Power Star destroyer cannons fired by the battleships. Ares turned into ashes in midair. Before he fell, Ares raised a middle finger toward the sky and slowly dissipated. Balder, we will fight it out with you. Gaia and Diana looked at each other. They knew that Ares was dead, and they could not live any longer. They rushed into the sky. Gaia turned into a giant while Diana's body also expanded, turning into a dark red star. The 2 gigantic bodies flew into the sky and collided with the 2 warships. Then, before the 2 goddesses could fly any higher, they were swept by the warship's divine Power Star destroyer cannons, and they exploded into pieces in midair. It's all over. With the death of the 3 gods, a massive energy tide appeared in midair. Balder watched everything with a cold expression, wiping the blood off his body and waving at a floating void warship. A beam of emerald light immediately fell upon Balder's body. Balder's battered body, which the meteor had struck, began to heal rapidly. It was one of the Void Dynasty's abilities, healing rays. The Void Dynasty had studied the void to its limits, and all functions could be transmitted across space by compressing into light rays, just like healing rays. It was a technique to compress healing spells into light rays, and it was a technique to send light into the human body. While Balder was being healed, Nia and Watson were quietly retreating from the battlefield. I did not expect Balder to be so powerful. If you were to fight him, how much of a chance do you have of winning? If it were me in the divine realm, I would have defeated him even though it would have been difficult. If it were me now, I would have no chance of winning, Nia said quietly as she looked at the sky. Nia was a Diamond tier elite, and there was a gap between her and the Starlight tier. It proved that Balder was really powerful. Master, now that the 3 gods have been forcibly sent back to the divine realm, Balder's next target is you. I will try my best to stall him for a period so you can take the opportunity to escape. Escape? Where to? Watson smiled bitterly. Balder has planted a race chess piece in my body. Even if I leave now, I will be forced to go to him later. The reason I am far away from the battlefield is not to escape but to stay far away from Balder to avoid being affected by his attacks. It is also convenient for me to collect the power of the dead gods. Watson opened his hand. There were 3 masses of pitch black matter, squirming about. 2 of the masses of black matter emitted a blood-red color, while the last one contained a thick aura. Those were the remains of the gods after the 3 gods died in battle. Watson had used his ability to control the direction to draw them into his hand. Facing the scattered masses of pitch black matter in his hand, Watson did not hesitate. He immediately activated the fusion system. Fusion system, activate. Congratulations, Master, for fusing with the incomplete remains of the gods and obtaining the complete remains of the gods. Following the sound that rang in his ears, Watson placed the substance that had been fused into a golden ball of light into his mouth. The abilities of the 3 gods instantly appeared in his mind. Congratulations, Master, for obtaining the Moon Kingdom, the Earth Kingdom, and the War Kingdom. Congratulations on acquiring the abilities Throwing Chain of Planets, the summoning of unlimited war weapons, and the doubling of giants. There was no need to explain the 3 kingdoms. The 3 kingdoms were the most basic powers of the 3 gods. After obtaining them, Watson would be able to control the moon like Diana, such as summoning stars or controlling gravity. He could also control the blood of others, like Ares, the god of war, and make them go crazy. He had also obtained 3 other abilities. Among them, he had just seen the combination of Diana and Gaia's skill with the meteorite. It was so powerful that it even injured Balder, who had no choice but to use his full strength. As for the summoning of unlimited war weapons, it was Ares' ability. Its effect was that Watson could replicate any weapon that he had seen before. The abilities of the replica would be the same as the real one. Furthermore, they could be repaired after being damaged. The only difference was that repairing it required a large amount of energy. As for the doubling of giants spell, the move made Gaia's body grow larger. That move could allow the body to expand countless times and also increase the body's strength. If he needed strength, it was a practical move. With the addition of Ager's abilities, I've obtained 4 divine kingdoms and 4 special divine skills. If it weren't for the fact that I had a race chess piece implanted in my body, that fight would have been a great profit for me. Watson sighed as he extended his right hand downward. Following his actions, the Divine Power Star Destroyer Cannon, initially attacking the surface after destroying Ares and the other gods, barely turned a weak angle. It brushed past the walls of the royal city and blasted it into the ground. A massive pit of unknown depth appeared. Boiling magma rose from within it. The magma spread along the huge pit and flowed to the side of the wall of the royal city, causing a huge burning hole in the wall. The lava was still spreading into the capital and would soon cover the entire capital. At that time, any elite who could not fly out of the capital would die. The guards who discovered that scene sounded the alarm and relayed the news back to the capital. For a moment, many residents felt uneasy and rushed out of their houses. Some people did not even have the time to take their luggage. For a moment, everyone cursed as they fought their way out. Hurry up and leave. I heard that boiling lava had appeared outside the city walls. It will soon spread into the capital. DMN it. Why are the gods fighting for no reason? I have several houses in the capital. If my assets are destroyed because of the lava, I will suffer a huge loss. Many nobles continued to curse. In a wooden house close to the slums, not far away from those people, the old man who had just prayed to Balder was leading the 2 children outside in a panic. While running, he comforted the 2 children. It's okay. Lord Balder just appeared. Apparently, he heard our prayers. No matter what happens outside, we'll be fine. The 2 little boys were silent. The older one stared at the glowing statue in his grandfather's hand and nodded in relief. He had not believed in the god, but after the statue had lit up when he asked it to shine. That proved that Balder had divine power. In addition, the battle that had happened, no matter who saw it, they would understand that it was a battle between gods. Lord Balder will definitely protect us. The old man repeated those words. Just as he walked out of the slums with the 2 children, he was pushed aside by the crowd on the street. He did not even hold the statue in his hand properly, and it fell out. It was crushed by a few people who were in a hurry. My idol, you dare step on an idol? You will be punished. The old man ran forward hurriedly and reached out to pick up the broken sculpture. The sculpture had gradually lost its light. The old man would cry if he could. No one cared about the old man. His young grandson, who was not far away from him, watched everything with widened eyes. The boy knew that the sculpture had lost its light as it fell to the ground. In the cathedral, Your Eminence, the battle in the sky has ended. Just as you guessed, the god of light, Balder, has won. A priest stood behind the red-robed archbishop and looked at the 5 broken sculptures on the ground. His expression was complicated. Only 2 sculptures remained in the cathedral. One was Balder's sculpture, but the light emitting from the statue was fading. On the other hand, the statue of the time traveler had not lit up at all. I did not expect the gods to fight amongst themselves. For some reason, this year was a disaster for the priests. We priests had collectively lost our ability to sense the gods for one day. Now, the kingdom has lost 5 of its 7 gods. The power of the priests to believe in other gods will be significantly weakened. Not only that, the faith of the believers in the kingdom will also be impacted. The red-robed archbishop sighed. They needed the blessings of the gods to become stronger, and they also needed the names of the gods to plunder money. If the gods disappeared, the people would no longer believe in them, who would send money to the servants who served the gods. I wonder if this will turn into the same situation as the demonist church 10 years ago. Oh, right, I just sent my men to the palace to deliver the news. His Majesty should have known about this matter by now. I wonder what His Majesty said about this matter. Your Eminence, our men have just gone to the palace to report. Unfortunately, His Majesty is not in the palace. According to the reports from the people in the palace, His Majesty seems to have left a long time ago. Not in the palace? If His Majesty is not in the palace at such an important time, then where could he be? The Archbishop stared blankly at the sky, his expression melancholic with a hint of uneasiness. In the sky, after firing a few divine Power Star destroyer cannons and digging a few holes deep into the Earth's core, Balder came before Watson under the protection of many void warships and lowered his head to take a look. He said, "Watson, it seems like you've already devoured the cores of the other gods. That saves me the process of helping you collect them. Don't worry, after I've fused with you, I'll use that thing in your body to repair the ground. As for now, I hope that you can cooperate with me and not resist me. Do you think that if I could resist you, I would still stay here?" Watson raised his hands and smiled bitterly. His words stunned Balder for a moment, and then he shook his head with a smile. "Watson, you are a fascinating person. If it weren't for the thing in your body, perhaps you could have relied on your own efforts to become a god and enter the divine realm. It's a pity." As he spoke, Balder raised his hand and placed his palm on Watson's forehead. Watson immediately felt like he had lost control of his body. Even though his will was about to be stripped away, an inexplicable and powerful force entered his body, gradually turning his body into someone else's. During that process, Nia raised her hand, wanting to stop Balder's actions. However, Watson turned his eyes with difficulty and gave Nia a look, indicating that she should not act rashly. Even if she did not understand, Nia still obeyed Watson. At that moment, Balder coughed. Black blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth, causing him to hunch his body in pain. Watson also recovered his freedom and laughed. "Lord Balder, do you think that you have already won? It might not be appropriate to say that now. I don't know if you have heard an old saying in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind." Chapter 470, The Final Winner. "Watson, what did you do to me?" Balder reached out and touched his mouth. Black blood flowed down his nose, mouth, and even his eyes, blurring his world. Balder could feel his body rapidly collapsing as if there was poison in it. However, he did not know when Watson had poisoned him. Perhaps it was when he was fighting the 3 gods. Watson must have transferred the poison to his body through the attacks of the gods, causing him to be poisoned. If that was the case, he should have noticed the moment the poison entered his body. Furthermore, it was just a mere poison. He should have been able to heal himself when he used the void warship to heal himself. Why was he still poisoned? "It's not that I've done anything to you, Lord Balder. Have you forgotten that there's another god named Sidi among the gods who participated in the hunt for me?" Quote, "Sidi?" Balder narrowed his eyes. As he spoke, the air behind him suddenly fluctuated. A shadow appeared and turned into a kingdom made of shadows. In it, Sidi, who looked like ash, sat upright on the thrones supported by the shadow's arms. She held a glass of red wine in her hand and shook it indifferently. "Balder, The battle just now was really tragic. Fortunately, I did not join hands with the other gods to attack you. Otherwise, I would have died by now." As Seti spoke, she did not look at Balder. Instead, her gaze fell on Watson. "Watson, I've already done what I promised when I agreed to be your ally and help you. If you survive, don't forget my contributions. Fuse me the weapon and other things I want." "Of course, Lady Seti. In return, as long as I survive, I'll help you no matter what you want." Quote. Watson smiled. The prerequisite was that he survived. "Seti, were you the one who poisoned me? Even though you are the goddess of shadow and potion, it's impossible for me not to notice it." When Balder waved his hand, the warship that was floating in midair flew close to him, using the healing rays to envelop his entire body and help him recover. Unfortunately, his method did not allow his body to heal. Instead, under the illumination of the healing rays, his body collapsed even faster, pieces of flesh already falling off his body. "Balder, you've misunderstood. First of all, I did not poison you with poison, but a potion that can strengthen that body's ability. That was something I used before you possessed that body, and I also used different potions on the bodies of other gods. Even Watson had the potion. These potions are nothing in themselves, but when mixed, they are highly toxic. Seti, it seems that you had already expected that I would come into contact with everyone. You are really a schemer. However, do you think that you have defeated me?" As Balder spoke, he extended his right hand. The arm had already lost most of its flesh and was only left with white bones. He grabbed Seti's neck and said, "With my current ability, it's not difficult for me to hold on for a few more minutes. During this time, I can kill you 100 times. Originally, I swore that as long as anyone could defeat me, I would hand over the right to use the chess pieces to them. But as long as I kill you first, you won't be able to defeat me." Quote. The wine cup in Seti's hand fell, and the throne made of shadows also collapsed. She could not breathe, and she desperately reached out her hand to hit Balder's arm as if she wanted to say something. The warship had a huge cannon aimed at Seti. After making sure that Seti could not escape, Balder loosened his right hand slightly, and Seti panted heavily, looking at Balder with a resentful look. "Balder, you attacked me without a word, almost strangling me to death. You've made 2 mistakes from the very beginning. I've already told you the first one. What's in your body is not poison, so you won't have any reaction. Furthermore, my potion is perfectly coordinated with that body. No matter what you do, you can't stop that body from collapsing. Secondly, who told you I gave you that potion? Even though I made the potion, if I did not place it in that body, it would not count as me defeating you, would it?" "You mean?" Balder's expression changed after he understood the meaning of Seti's words. He turned his head abruptly and saw that the air not far behind him was distorted. A huge throne appeared, and the figure of King Landhar III appeared on it. The king wore a long robe and a crown on his head. His image was distorted by the throne, only revealing a pair of eyes that could look down on the world. His majestic voice echoed in the surroundings. "Balder, I am the one who injected the potion into your body. Your battle, including your strength, is all part of my master plan." "Is that you, King Landhar III? No, it can't be you. I would have thought of it a long time ago." Balder was silent at first, then smiled and said, "You said you would help us get Watson, but in reality, you betrayed us. You are too daring, King Landhar III. Aren't you afraid that after I leave, I will explain it to the other gods and allow them to descend on you? You do not need to be concerned about that, Lord Balder. You do not have any more room to fight. When you all took action, I already told the people about a magical device. Many people, I believe, are now aware that the gods are at odds over their beliefs. More than half of people's beliefs, I believe, will crumble. Aside from that, I have spread the word to other kingdoms. The gods descended into mortal life without being reincarnated. That is against the gods' rules, and they must be severely punished. I am not sure what the gods of other kingdoms will do to you if they find out. I believe they have already been informed. If you dare to do that, King Landhar III, your actions will cost you the protection of all gods." Balder's eyes widened, and for the first time, his expression changed. He flew toward King Landhar, and the warship behind him shifted. King Landhar III was correct. Gods were not permitted to enter the mortal world. That rule was established by the divine realm's top elites. Other gods would attack any gods who broke that rule. The 7 gods had dared to visit the Holy Dragon Kingdom because they had long collaborated with King Landhar III. Nobody would have known about it. They had not expected King Landhar III to assist them and then sell them out. King Landhar III was breaking his promise with them by doing so. They would be unable to gain their trust in the future. The kingdom's priest would be rendered unusable as well. Lord Balder, my kingdom will no longer require gods from now on. Watson, as the coveted genius you all desire, will soon have everything in his body. I might as well be a god from now on. The words of King Landhar III were simple, but they had a commanding air to them. Balder had already arrived in front of King Landhar II, and he extended his right fist toward him. When the powerful fist carrying the power to shatter stars arrived in front of King Landhar III, it slowly came to a halt. It crumbled into ashes, followed by Balder's body. Finally, his eyes, which were filled with apprehension, dissipated. The warships that filled the sky accompanied him. All of that occurred in the presence of King Landhar III. He just sat there and did not move. Sidi, have you made the potion I asked you to make? Do not worry, I have got it covered. Sidi rubbed the back of her neck, which had been strangled. That potion can mimic the effects of the god's remains, he said, pulling a bottle of potion from his pocket and throwing it at King Landhar III. You have the ability to separate your soul from your body and enter the bodies of others. Before you use that potion, I would like to ask if you would have reported me for entering the mortal world to the other gods if it had not been for the potion I made for you? When confronted with Sidi's question, King Landhar III fell silent and laughed. What are your thoughts? I will not harm you as long as you remain by my side and support my plan. Whatever you say. Anyway, I am only rooting for the victor. Sidi snorted but did not respond. Even without saying it aloud, the answer was obvious. Unlike the other gods who came to hunt Watson, she had given up the hunt from the start because she knew she could not win. She only needed to follow the victor to reap the benefits, regardless of whether that victor was Watson or King Landhar III. That person, in any case, could not be Balder. Balder's main body in the divine realm should have been in a lot of trouble based on the fact that he had stopped halfway through his attack on King Landhar III. That made Sidi sigh inwardly. Humans had plotted against her. That was humiliating enough. She did not want to mock Balder because the 2 humans in front of her were not ordinary people in nature. King Landhar III left the massive throne and came to Watson after drinking the potion. Watson, I arrived too late. I have caused you pain. Your Majesty, I believe your arrival marks the beginning of my agony. Watson shook his head. King Landhar III remained silent. Nia, on the other hand, frowned. What does he mean, Your Majesty? Is it your intention to assassinate my master? He did not answer the question, but in response, King Landhar III asked, I noticed you when you were a baby, Miss Nia. I was the one who made it possible for you to live peacefully in the royal city and receive a good education from the Saint Laurent family. Even if you are a god with no emotions, you should feel some gratitude toward me. I hope you can stand on the sidelines and not intervene. I promise not to let you lose your master, but I will take over the power in Watson's body. King Landhar III was crystal clear. He wished to succeed Watson as Nia's master. Ordinary people might be angry when they hear such words, but he was confident Nia would not be angry because she was a god with weak emotions. The thing in Watson's body was the reason she recognized Watson as her master. It was understandable that if he replaced Watson and gained power in his body, he would become Nia's master. Nia, please step aside. Then I will unleash the power of the race chess piece. Even if you are a child of God with a human body, I may control you under the influence of that power. You probably do not want to be in that situation. King Landhar III consoled her once more. In his hand, a shadow of a chess piece appeared. When that chess piece appeared, Watson felt an irresistible sense of suppression. He could not defy King Landhar III's orders, no matter how hard he tried. When King Landhar III told him he had to die, he did not even flinch. Nia was still pondering King Landhar III's words when Watson burst out laughing. Nia, please step to the side. Do not be concerned about me. I am going to be fine. Master, get going. Nia was about to say something when Watson interrupted her. She could only bite her lower lip and shuffle to the side. Watson, I have known you for quite some time. You have the type of personality that I admire. You are also far more powerful than my sons. If at all possible, I hope you are my son. You do not need to be concerned. I will make you my godson and the next king after you die. Do not say such hypocritical things, your majesty. You want to be my father, but I do not want to be your son. Having a father like you will make me sick. King Landhar III's eyes glowed with displeasure as he heard Watson's words, but he suppressed them and slowly walked toward Watson. You are free to say whatever you want, Watson. In any case, my strategy is already in place. Things will develop as I believe, no matter how hard you try. Everything was part of his plan. Before leaving the palace, he not only informed the other gods about the god's secret descent, but he also informed the people. As a result, many people's faith in the gods began to wane. In the future, his goal was to sweep away the church that worshipped the seven gods. He would face far too much opposition. The gods had brought disaster to the kingdom when they fought Watson. He could seize the opportunity to oust those gods and become the ruler. Since the gods had given their faith, it was not as effective as controlling the faith of the entire kingdom. To achieve that goal, he did not mind reliving the demonist church's history from more than 10 years ago. All of this was for one purpose, to dethrone the gods and take over Watson's body. He had that thought after learning about Watson's body's power. The previous agreement with the god, which included the murder of his 2 sons, was all part of the plan. The gods would not have been able to possess someone else's body and take over someone else's body if he had not helped them come to the world. If his 2 sons had not died after Watson became king, they would not have been able to accept the outcome and would have opposed Watson. He would bear the pain and murder his 2 sons. Rather, it would be preferable if his 2 sons died with some dignity. His plan included hosting the Royal Academy's competition and appointing the first-place winner the right to inherit the throne. Only by allowing Watson to take the lead would everyone see how much he valued Watson. Only then would Watson be able to inherit the throne officially, and he would have already been Watson at that point. I do not want to waste any more time, Watson. Pay attention to my commands. You are not permitted to resist at this time. Allow me to take control of your body. His thoughts abruptly came to a halt. King Landhar III carefully examined the potion Seti had given him before pouring it into his mouth. A layer of silver-gray viscous liquid appeared on his body immediately after that. It was distinct from God's remains. The soul that King Landhar III had burned in his body was grayer and older. King Landhar III was already nearly 60 years old. Despite the fact that his powerful strength made him appear as young as a middle-aged man, the increase in age made him see the danger. However, Watson was unique. He was only 11 or 12 years old, but he possessed unrivaled talent. His future accomplishments seemed limitless. With Watson's body, King Landhar III might be able to continue the Holy Dragon Kingdom's expansion. It was not impossible to make it the most powerful human kingdom in recorded history. The world would be his if he possessed Watson's body and gained that power. Even the gods would have to bow to him. With that power, he would be able to grant himself a long-requested wish. King Landhar III's palm touched Watson, filled with hope for the future. Silver-gray matter began to seep out of his body and into Watson's. The procedure was completed in a very short period. Since Watson was not moving, the light in his eyes gradually faded and was replaced by another color. At that time, roar, a dragon's roar rang out in the sky. Then, in midair, a massive space passage opened. Countless black armored knights with light wings on their backs appeared in the sky. All of those knights radiated a powerful diamond-tier aura. They not only had angel wings, but they also had dragon wings and tails. They numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Come, protect young Master Watson. Go. Alan, the leader of the Black Moon Knights, said. A young man with purple hair and elven ears stood at the front of the 100,000 Black Moon Knights. Some might say he looked like a woman, and his face was filled with a complex expression of mockery and hatred. It has been a long time since we last met, King Landhar III. You are surprised to see me now, aren't you? I am not sure if you want to see me, but I desperately wanted to see you. Let me tell you, 100,000 Black Moon Knights have all transformed into dragons and angels, thanks to Watson's potion. Each of them carries a bottle of Ascension Potion, and their strength can be quickly upgraded to Starlight Tier. What did it mean to have 100,000 Starlight Tier elites? Mount Creation had devoted significant resources to creating 100,000 Black Moon Nights. There was no extra medicine for the general public. Sylvan, I know that you have been working with Watson at the border for a long time, and I do not want to care about what you have done. It is not like I am interested in it. You have come to me to brag now. Everything will be mine as long as I control Watson's body. The stronger your soldiers are, the happier I will be. King Landhar III used Watson, who was wrapped in a silver-gray liquid, to speak for him. He was about to take control of Watson's body. King Landhar III, you have no idea what you are about to face. All right, I will let you see it for yourself. Do you know how much effort I have put in all these years to cross the border and come to the capital to face you directly? Sylvan raised his hands and clapped. The passage in the sky continued to grow larger and louder. The passage was filled with the sound of the sea, and the sky was filled with the sea tide. The people riding on the sea tide appeared one after the other. Those sea tribes had angelic halos on their backs as well, and they exuded the aura of an elite group. Their leader was Poseidon. Owen and Alice stood next to Poseidon. When Alice saw how King Landhar III had consumed Watson, she could not help but take a step forward. "Brother Watson, are you okay?" she asked, about to rush out when Owen stopped her. "Do not be alarmed, Alice. For the time being, young Master Watson is fine. Everything is up to young Master Watson now." Owen turned to face King Landhar III after saying that. "This is the capital of the Holy Dragon Kingdom," he said with killing intent in his blue eyes. "I have always wanted to submerge the human kingdom and turn it into an ocean." Young Master Watson changed the sea folk's fate. He is not someone who can be corrupted by a despicable human king like you. If you do not stop, I will make your death very unpleasant. When Owen stopped her, Alice bit her lower lip. Even though she desperately wanted to be by Watson's side, she had to put up with it. She had left the sea folk to meet Watson in the capital. However, before she could leave, she noticed a strange occurrence in the direction of the royal city. Then she received an order from Mount Creation, which summoned not only her but all the sea folks to the royal city. "Are you part of the sea folks?" Watson was coerced by King Landhar III to look up at the sky, his eyes wide with surprise. Watson's ability to control the sea creatures surprised him. There were more than 100,000 sea folks in front of him, each with a platinum-tier aura. Some of them were even more powerful than others. It was not the strength of that group of sea tribe members that surprised him, but the fact that Watson had secretly controlled the sea tribe in a location he was unaware of. He had no idea that controlling the sea tribe was the same as controlling the ocean. That was something the human kingdoms had always wanted to do but had been unable to do. Before the shock wore off, King Landhar III noticed a tunnel appear in the air once more. It was no longer an army that appeared in the tunnel, but a star. The star was filled with the roars of dragons. The massive dragons that appeared in the air had dragon auras. Each of those dragons was a dragon king, and there were millions of them. A few dragons stood in front of those dragon kings, their auras even stronger than Balder and the other gods. This place appears to be quite lively. Odyssey, the Light Dragon King, is here to protect you, young Master Watson. I hope you do not go too far, human king. It is best if you let the Dragon Emperor go. Because we can still let you go. Otherwise, you will just have to wait for death. The Light Dragon King stood among the dragon gods. His aura was powerful. He placed his hands on his hips. Is he a Dragon King? The Dragon King is speaking with the Dragon Emperor, Watson. When did Watson become the Dragon Emperor? The expression on King Landhar III's face could no longer be described as shocked. His nerves started trembling, causing his scalp to go numb. He was already aware that Watson had done something in the dragon lair. Unfortunately, no matter how many questions he posed to Watson, he remained silent. He could imagine Watson providing many benefits to the dragons, but he did not expect Watson to elevate the dragons to that level. As Watson had predicted, he had truly made a name for the dragons. There were also millions of dragons floating in the sky. Every dragon clan had a dragon king, and the leaders of the most powerful dragon clans were even like dragon gods. The gods would not have hunted Watson if he had summoned those dragon gods to help him. Take a look at the sky. What are those? People fleeing due to the lava outside the capital noticed changes in the sky and looked up. They witnessed a shocking scene. The sky had been divided into 3 sections. One had humans dressed in black armor with the appearance of an angel and a dragon. The sea tribe was riding on the waves in the sky, next to the human army. Over 1 million massive dragons surrounded them. Is that the sea tribe? Why did they throw seawater into the sky? When did the sea tribe learn to fly and have wings? And there are far too many dragons. At first glance, there appear to be over 1 million of them. Why are there so many dragons? Are you sure we're not dreaming? When the residents saw the scene in the sky, some were so terrified that they sat down on the ground. The brave ones forgot to flee, and the luggage in their hands fell to the ground without their knowledge. Then there was the war between the gods, followed by a slew of unknown armies. They had been so shocked by the series of traumas that they could not recover their senses, and their minds were blank. King Landhar III, who was wrapped around Watson's body in the sky, paused his invasion. He suppressed the shock in his heart after a brief period of silence. 1 million dragons, 100,000 armies, and 100,000 sea folks. Such power is sufficient to sweep across the globe and dominate all known kingdoms. I cannot believe Watson has risen to such heights. Watson can be considered one of the top geniuses in the kingdom's history even without the assistance of that thing. I have to say, I admire him. The fact that he had quietly amassed such a massive army in the kingdom made King Landhar III realize that Watson's severed fingers gang in front of him was only the tip of the iceberg of his immense power. Leaving everything else aside, even King Landhar III would have had a headache if Watson had brought such a powerful force to invade them. It would have taken them an instant to destroy the Holy Dragon Kingdom's army. Simultaneously, he felt fortunate that such an army had appeared in front of him at that precise moment. If he did not know Watson was keeping that force hidden, it would undoubtedly become a hidden danger in the future. He might have lost if he had not intervened and allowed the 7 gods who guarded the kingdom to descend on a hunt for Watson. King Landhar III sighed. He had not intended to start looking for Watson so soon. Watson was entirely to blame for not telling the truth after returning from the dragon lair. He was concerned that something unexpected would occur, so he had planned ahead of time. It was fine to say he was narrow-minded or cautious, but he survived precisely because of those characteristics. I have had enough of your clout. It is truly amazing. Once I take over Watson's body, I will definitely make good use of you. Slowly, King Landhar III spoke. His mood had improved after the shock. What was the point, no matter how powerful those people were? Could they prevent him from assuming control of Watson's body? More than half of his body had already integrated with Watson's body at that point. It would be the equivalent of murdering Watson if he attacked him. No matter how powerful those people were when he fused with Watson and grasped that fusion system, he could not wave his hand and fuse with them, transforming them into his power. Don't you understand, King Landhar III? You don't have a chance anymore. Sylvan was unmoved by King Landhar III's words. He shook his head and reached into his pocket for a bottle of potion. Everyone, please pay attention to my command. Go for it. As soon as his voice faded, a tube of potion appeared in the hands of every creature present, whether humans, sea tribes, or dragons. The potion had the appearance of a clock. The liquid dial and needle continued to rotate. It was known as the Ascension Potion. The Ascension Potion could temporarily transport a person to the Starlight Tier, and everyone had 1 million Ascension Potions at their disposal. The potion could produce 1 million Starlight Tier elites in a short period, but the appearance of 1 million Starlight Tier elites at the same time was beyond the mortal world's ability to withstand. Ordinary Starlight Tier elites would be ejected from the world as soon as they achieved Starlight Tier status. That was because the power released by Starlight Tier elites exceeded the limit that the world could withstand and would cause harm to the world, not to mention that 1 million Starlight Tier elites would descend at the same time. What kind of havoc would 1 million gods unleashing their power on the world cause? No one knew what the answer was. Sylvan took the initiative and drank the Ascension Potion first. Golden flames immediately erupted from his body. Every hair was spewing air currents, and his hair transformed into light and floated in the air. Above his head, an illusion of a god the size of a star appeared. It looked eerily similar to him. Following that, all of the Black Moon Knights drank the Ascension Potion. At that moment, 100,000 gods descended, and 100,000 layers of massive starlight illusions appeared in the sky. The sky was ripped apart by a powerful force. It split the sky above the royal city in two, revealing a massive crack. The ground, as well as the sky, began to crack and collapse. It felt as if the entire world was about to fall apart. The 100,000 sea tribes began to move after the 100,000 Black Moon Knights did that. As they drank the Ascension Potion, another 100,000 powerful divine projections appeared in the world, as did huge human figures formed from starlight squeezed together. The sky fell, the earth cracked, and the air became viscous. That sensation was similar to a balloon the size of a human head. However, someone had poured tens of times its volume of water into the balloon, causing it to be crushed. That was the state of the world at the time. The earth was being ripped apart, and cracks appeared on the surface. The event tore the capital apart. Hundreds of people stood on a plot of land. They cried for their relatives and friends on another piece of land as they looked at the deep, invisible cracks in the ground that had been torn apart in horror. It was the same in the sky. Many pairs of eyes as bright as stars had appeared behind the ripped sky. They swung back and forth between light and darkness. Previously, people separated by the sky thought the flickering things were stars. However, they soon discovered that those things were, in fact, the eyes of gods. Many gods were lying on the torn sky's back. Their enormous and terrifying faces were stuck in the sky, revealing greedy expressions. "Please, Mom, save me. What are those monsters that appear in the sky? Could they be the gods we used to worship?" After seeing the true faces of the gods, many of the once devout believers' beliefs crumbled. Their first impression of the gods was that they were humans engulfed in holy light, with benevolent expressions on their faces. Aside from their massive bodies, they exuded an intense power. Some of them had no resemblance to human aesthetics at all. Just looking at them causes numbness in the scalp. The gods had to pay a price to gain power as a higher-tier life form. Beauty was one of the prices. The world served as a barrier. Initially, humans were unable to see gods through the barrier. However, the power of 200,000 Starlight-tier elites instantly pierced a hole in the barrier, allowing the people inside to see the world outside through the hole. That sensation was similar to humans observing a pet trapped in a cage. Humans, on the other hand, were the gods' pets. Not only did the majority of the people in the royal city who witnessed the true form of the gods suffer from mental breakdowns, but King Landhar III's mind, who was occupying Watson's body, also became unstable. "What are you going to do, Sylvan, you madman? Are you going to die alongside me?" He had previously plotted against the gods because what he saw in front of him was only a projection of the gods. The gods' actual bodies could not appear due to the rejections from the world's laws. However, if the world was destroyed, the gods would be able to send their bodies down. King Landhar III noticed that among the gods looking around in the sky, there were a few who were enraged. Even though it was only for a split second, he realized those were Baldur's and the other gods' gazes. He had previously plotted against those gods. He would not have a happy ending if the world split open and they entered, even if he took over Watson's body, because Watson could not compete with the countless gods in the divine realm. King Landhar III understood Watson's thoughts and what Sylvan meant when he said he had lost at that moment. If he took over Watson's body, those people would all take the Ascension Potion at the same time, causing the world to shatter and everyone to perish together. It would be his failure if he chose to take over Watson's body. They would either die together, or he could choose to stop. There was no way to predict either outcome. "If at all possible, I would like to assassinate you personally in order to avenge my sister. However, in the current situation, it is not a bad thing to have a chance to die alongside you. If I let you have Watson's body, I will not be able to avenge myself in the future. I might as well assassinate you right now." Sylvan gave a sad smile. His eyes shone with determination. "I am willing to die for young Master Watson. Long live young Master Watson." The 100,000 Black Moon Knights and 100,000 Sea Folks yelled simultaneously. Originally, Mount Creation had amassed unfathomable wealth. Only 100,000 Black Moon Knights had arrived because their wealth had been used to fuse and create the Ascension Potion. "Human King, you have yet to leave the Dragon Emperor's body. You are extremely obstinate. Since that is the case, the Dragon Clan will not be deterred by formalities. All the dragons will drink the Ascension Potion for the sake of the Dragon Emperor." The Light Dragon King, Odyssey, noticed that, despite King Landhar III's reluctance, he did not leave Watson's body. He snorted coldly and raised his hand to the ascension potion. Consume the ascension potion to pave the way for the Dragon Emperor. The dragons all yelled at the same time. Their voices echoed throughout the Holy Dragon Kingdom. Watson provided them with their strength. Watson had given them new leases on life. They had no choice but to assist Watson if he were in trouble. After all, even if they shattered the world and entered the realm of the gods, they would be able to survive with their strength. King Landhar III could not keep it in any longer when he saw 1,000,000 dragons were prepared to drink the potion and let the world fall apart. Enough already. I admit I messed up this time. I will not occupy Watson's body again. As he spoke, the grayish-white liquid he had transformed into left Watson's body and reverted to his original form. Watson's body trembled, and color began to appear in his eyes. "You are ruthless, Watson," King Landhar III said to Watson, his face tense. He appeared to be filled with remorse. "Your Majesty, you are far too gracious. I, too, racked my brains to devise this strategy. If you are ruthless enough to choose to die with me, I have no other option." Watson smiled slightly as he noticed King Landhar III remain silent for a brief moment before abruptly extending his right hand. "Do not budge." At that moment, a man dressed as a clown appeared beside King Landhar III. He had a sad expression on his face. His hand was resting on King Landhar III's neck. The mere touch of his skin caused King Landhar III's body to tremble. He could sense the terrifying power in the person next to him. It even outperformed a common god. He had no idea when that person had appeared. With his speed and strength, he could remove himself from Watson's body, and he could also knock him out, preventing him from temporarily possessing him. It appears that even if I were ruthless enough, I would not be able to achieve the desired result. Watson, I was completely lost at the time. King Landhar III's eyes flickered a few times before he sighed and closed his eyes. As he extended his right hand, his expression seemed to have aged a few years. "Do not be alarmed, Your Majesty. I am not going to do anything else to Watson. I just want to give him the race chess piece. Watson has defeated me, despite the fact that he used a threatening method. As a result, that divine artifact is his." Chapter 471. The Human King. With King Landhar III's movements, a chess piece that flashed with starlight gradually appeared. King Landhar III's body and the illusion of a chess piece the size of a meteorite appeared in the sky the moment that chess piece appeared. It even suppressed the Black Moon Knights and the sea folks that had drunk the Ascension Potion. The light of the race chess piece also blocked the illusion of the gods spying on the world below. When he saw that scene, the melancholy man said slowly, "I told you not to move around. You not only moved around, but you also took something without being asked. You are infringing on my rights. Would you like to die here?" "Wait a second, Nidhogg. That is not His Majesty's fault. After all, even if he does not want to, he can't give me the race chess piece." Watson extended his right hand and grabbed the floating race chess piece. He could feel a chess piece appearing in his heart the moment he took it. Baldur's race chess piece, which had been stuffed into his body undetected, could be felt clearly. Unknown level item. Incomplete human race chess piece. Effect. After releasing the chess piece, all humans within the range of the chess piece will be controlled. It has nothing to do with strength. The chess piece can also be placed on a person's body to control them. The person controlled by the chess piece cannot remove the control. It is ineffective against non-human races. When the chess piece in his body appeared, Watson's mind was filled with information about it. Fusion system, activate. Watson immediately began fusing the race chess piece. "Congratulations, Master, on successfully fusing the incomplete human race chess piece to form a complete race piece." Sovereign tier item. Human's race chess piece. It was said that before the appearance of treasures with the ability to control the fate of a race, all kinds of creatures and races were born in the creation of heaven and earth. Effects. King of the human race. The discourse of the human race has supreme authority, human control, the master of all the known knowledge of human history or the creation of things. Human creation. The consumption of power to create the human race. Human barrier. Before the extinction of the human race itself will not be materially harmed. Additional effects. Molecular acceleration. Watson's fusion transformed the two pieces into a round piece that emitted white light. A tower-shaped base was at the bottom of the piece, and on the base was a statue with no facial features. It was difficult to tell whether it was a man or a woman. The face kept changing, as if it did not look like a human but was made up of every human's features. Everyone there, including King Landhar, felt as if their fate was in Watson's hands after the human chess piece was fused. It was as if they were destined to be Watson's servants, and they felt compelled to protect their king. What is going on? People in the capital looked up at the sky, which was not far from them. At the same time, their bloodlines were drawn to the chess piece in the sky, and they subconsciously desired to become one with the massive chess piece. That sensation was as if the chess pieces in the sky were torches, and they were the sparks flying from the torches. Despite the fact that they could move freely after leaving the torches had always drawn them in. It was the place where they were born as well as their final destination. Another amazing thing has been created by young Master Watson. The Ascension Potion's effect had already worn off, allowing them to regain their original strength from the Starlight Tier. With burning eyes, everyone looked at the chess pieces floating in front of Watson. They all stretched out their fists to press against their chests, enjoying the stronger beating of their hearts in their chests. That chess piece was mine. That power was mine as well. King Landhar III focused his gaze on the chess piece in front of Watson. His eyes were filled with apprehension. As the human king, he was familiar with the game of chess. It was mentioned in some ancient books from the Third Era. It was said that the ancient gods fought over something, resulting in a long-lasting war that tore the entire world apart. One of them was race chess. Race chess first appeared in that world when the world was born. It could be referred to as the cradle of all races. When the world was first created, a certain type of energy gathered and became race chess. There were strong and weak energies, but they were roughly equal. The race chess then began to multiply, dispersing from a large mass of energy into smaller energy individuals. The races were those high-energy individuals. Each race chess piece had roughly the same amount of energy. As a result, the greater the number of individual chess pieces, the weaker each person's power is. Humans, for example, despite the fact that there were many of them, their strength was very average. Unlike dragons, their weakest level when they reached adulthood was Platinum Tier. The chess pieces were last recorded during the Void Era. It was rumored that many of the chess pieces were wiped out during the ancient battles. That resulted in the erasure of those races' chess pieces and the depletion of their bloodlines. The human race's chess pieces, which were not thought to have an advantage in the ancient era, were also shattered but not wholly destroyed. The people of the Void Era were in charge of the fragments. The race chess pieces vanished following the expansion of the Void Era when they challenged the Divine Realm, and the entire kingdom collapsed. When later generations of kings learned about the race chess pieces, they mocked the so-called race chess pieces controlled by the Void Era and the more ancient battles. They believed that those were simply the byproducts of myths' formation. King Landhar III thought the same thing until he saw the race chess piece that Baldur used on Watson. He recognized the treasure at a glance because it was precisely the same as described in the ancient legends. The ancient legends turned out to be true. If he could successfully inhabit Watson's body, he would gain Watson's magical talent and also the race chess piece. He could achieve the peak of his life. Unfortunately, he was defeated. He did not want to give away the race chess piece, just like Watson said. He could not refuse because Baldur had previously sworn that whoever defeated Baldur would receive the race chess piece. He had previously defeated Baldur. In reality, everything was pre-planned by Watson. As a result, Watson's victory over Baldur resulted in the race chess piece recognizing Watson as its master. While King Landhar III was thinking about it, Watson was sorting through the thoughts that came to him. Along with the appearance of the race chess piece, many things that did not belong to him appeared in his mind simultaneously. Among those were the technology and wisdom that countless dynasties had amassed over the tens of thousands of years that humans had lived since ancient times. Those were like a picture scroll that slowly unfolded in his mind, allowing him to read the past with clarity. He could also directly extract the technology that humans had previously mastered. Not only that, but some elites existed in the past, and he could learn the abilities that those people had mastered directly from them. The history of humanity was the history of creation, and humanity's hymn was the hymn of courage. Watson observed that countless humans throughout history had accomplished incredible feats. Perhaps, when compared to other races born with great power in ancient times, humans' power was too weak. However, humans also possessed unique group intelligence. They were able to avoid pride and show their fangs at the strong precisely because they were weak. Aside from that, Watson had a better understanding of the world after fusing with the chess piece. The race chess piece can be thought of as the sovereign tier's symbol. The lowest cultivation system in that world was iron tier, while the highest was sovereign tier. Each tier had its own distinct features. Bronze tier warriors, for example, could transform their combat aura into armor, while silver tier warriors could fly. Diamond tier elites could understand the rules above their tier, and starlight tier elites could become gods. Their bodies had the power of stars, illuminating the earth. What about sovereign tier? Watson had previously only known that sovereign tier elites were above starlight tier elites and were even more powerful than gods. He finally had a firm grasp on that tier. The term sovereign referred to the ruler of a particular race. The race chess was a symbol of sovereign tier. The race chess was created when the world was created, and its energy was fixed. As a result, the highest achievement of a person who understood race chess was fixed, and that was to gather the energy of all the other participants in the race into one's own body. If you could do that, you would be a king. The sovereign tier represented the pinnacle of that world. If a person wanted more power after reaching the sovereign tier, they could only go to other elites for it. In other words, they had to fight for the right to play chess. Or, like Nia, they could choose to reincarnate as a child of God. They could reincarnate from one race to another and absorb the energy of the other. They would be able to break through the limit that way. Originally, Watson was wondering what else could stop Nia after she had reached sovereign tier. He realized it then. That world was much larger than he had anticipated. It was not, however, without limitations. Watson could grasp a sliver of the world's edge. The ability of each race chess piece to control a race or create its own people is derived. Its essence represents the ability to create the world. The human chess piece symbolizes the origin ability, which is molecular acceleration, Watson muttered to himself. The ability to move and expand an infinite amount of energy was referred to as molecular acceleration. That was very similar to how humans were able to quickly reproduce and replenish their population regardless of how much suffering they endured. Nia had mastered two sovereign tier skills. The first was molecular deceleration, which should have been a gift from the race she was born into. Molecular acceleration was the other. It should be a new ability Nia gained after reincarnating as the child of God in that world. Watson had gone from diamond to peak diamond tier after understanding that point and having a deep understanding of the power system of that world. He was on the verge of breaking through to starlight tier. Watson would have needed at least 10 years to accumulate energy from diamond to peak diamond. However, with the invention of the human chess piece, that process was drastically shortened. Not only that, but Watson had a good idea of where he wanted to go with his future training. There is a limit to how much a race's power can grow. If I want to get stronger, I need to fuse more races and make more race chess pieces. It appears that, in addition to the sea race and the dragon race, I need to control more races. He had previously subdued the sea folks and the dragon race solely to gain control of the sea and sky to better fight the kingdom. However, he had a more lofty goal then. Watson inserted the human chess piece into his own body after a long sigh. If the human chess piece immediately entered his heart and fused with it, assimilating his heart into the shape of a chess piece, one had to master the race chess piece if one wanted to become a sovereign tier elite. The person who mastered the race chess piece, on the other hand, was not necessarily a sovereign tier elite. It was the same with Watson. He was only at the peak of the diamond tier when he realized he had what it took to become a sovereign tier elite. Although he was still a little immature, he would undoubtedly grow into a worthy human sovereign tier elite in the future. Watson looked around, filled with pride. The battle is over. Everyone has worked hard. His voice did not need to be particularly loud at that point, after fusing with the race chess, but it could still reach the ears of everyone there. Young Master Watson appears to be a little different than before. Should I say he has grown more majestic or stronger? I do not even dare to look at him directly now, a Black Moon Knight muttered to himself. The people around him nodded as well. I have the same impression. My legs are shaky. If I had not held on so tenaciously, I would have knelt in front of young Master Watson right then and there. I will lavishly reward the soldiers who came, whether it was the Black Moon Iron Knight, the Sea Folks, or the dragons. I serve young Master Watson with no expectations of recompense." Many soldiers yelled at the same time, their voices echoing across the sky. Watson's corners of his mouth curled up in delight at that response. "There has to be a reward, but first." Watson raised his hand to the sky and activated the fusion system mid-sentence. The world, which had been harmed by the arrival of hundreds of thousands of Starlight Tier elites, began to heal as a result of his fusion, and it became even firmer. The gods spying vanished behind the massive black curtain in the sky. After their vision was blocked, one could clearly see their unwillingness in their eyes. Watson's fusion ability healed not only the sky but also the shattered land. The large hole created by Baldur's Void Warship's Divine Power Star Destroyer cannon quickly recovered, and the magma that seeped out of it vanished. Even the royal city, which had been ripped apart by bottomless ravines, was reassembled and rebuilt. The citizens sat on the ground in a daze, staring at their relatives and friends who were not far away, their faces contorted with relief at having survived a disaster. That scene happened in an instant, and Watson quickly drew his finger and turned to face King Landhar III, who was standing across from him. "This scene, Your Majesty, is about to come to an end. You invited the gods to come in and secretly plotted to take over my body. I am not sure what I should do with you. What exactly do you intend to do with me? Kill me?" King Landhar III's eyes flashed. "The winner takes everything. There is nothing wrong with what you did. You can rest assured, Your Majesty. I will not kill you for the time being. If I kill you, the kingdom will be in shambles as a result of my actions. 2 of the 3 princes died as a result of your actions, as did Augustus. The Campbells will not tolerate that. If I kill you now, everyone in the kingdom will believe it was my fault. There will be no ministers in the kingdom to back me up. Furthermore, the Winter Nation and the Elven Kingdom are collaborating to invade the Holy Dragon Kingdom. It is better for Your Majesty to deal with that." Watson shook his head and shrugged. "Just as I had a backup plan for your previous actions, didn't you have a backup plan for your failure?" Like Watson's, King Landhar III's backup plan was for the Holy Dragon Kingdom to fall apart and be invaded by other kingdoms, one to destroy the kingdom and the other to destroy the world if he died. The only difference between Watson and King Landhar III was a difference in their perspectives due to their power differences. "Watson, I don't have to pretend anymore. I only have one question for you right now. My plan was supposed to be flawless. How exactly did you destroy it? It appears that you were aware of all of my plans in advance and completed the counterattack in a location that I was unaware of." When he realized his final thoughts had been revealed, King Landhar III sighed and stopped pretending. He was perplexed as to how Watson could derail his plans. He might not have made the most significant contribution to the kingdom in history as king of the Holy Dragon Kingdom, but he boasted that he was the best at planning. In that regard, both the late king and the kingdom's so-called famous strategists were inferior to him. How could a 12 or 13-year-old boy like Watson do something like that? "That is a long story, Your Majesty. Are you willing to listen?" "Of course. After all, I am powerless to do anything but listen to the story right now." Watson cleared his throat and was about to speak when a magical array appeared beneath Sylvan's feet and in front of King Landhar III. He slapped King Landhar III across the face. Slap. King Landhar III's face swelled up at a noticeable rate, and blood flowed down the corner of his mouth. "I should call you Friar, not King Landhar III. You are still in the mood to hear a story? You must have a lot of free time." Sylvan's eyes glowed with murderous intent, and his raised right hand trembled. It was engulfed by a magical fluctuation powerful enough to kill a Diamond Tier elite. King Landhar III turned his head and spat out a mouthful of blood, saying, "Sylvan, you are still the same, still very rash. When Avril was still alive, she tried many times to persuade you, but you have not changed. I am afraid Avril would be very disappointed if I saw you now." Slap. Another smack. "Be starred. You have no right to mention Avril's name. You are the one who murdered her. I am going to kill you." Chapter 472. You no longer have another chance. "Do not be hasty, senior brother Sylvan." King Landhar III raised his head with an indifferent expression just as magic was about to land on his face. "Come on then. I will accompany Avril," he said. Watson immediately stopped. Watson's words had absolute power because he had obtained the human chess piece. Even though Sylvan's eyes were bloodshot and his chest was heaving up and down, he remained calm. You would not have come to me, let alone beaten me, if it had not been for Watson. If my plan had worked, you and the border would be my subordinates by now. How does it feel to work for your adversary and be powerless to resist? King Landhar III did not consider himself fortunate that he had not been beaten. Instead, he mocked him by raising the corner of his mouth. His words caused Sylvan's eyes to turn red once more, and anger took over his rationality. Sylvan had been planning to avenge his sister and overthrow the kingdom for more than 10 years. Since his adversary was right in front of him, and he still looked so proud, he could not take it any longer and abruptly opened his right hand. Vermilion Nova, his signature fire elemental spell, was cast. Since he attacked with rage, the spell he cast was a sun. It wrapped itself around King Landhar III as if it wanted to melt him. However, in the midst of the flames, King Landhar III only waved his hand, and a massive throne appeared beneath his body. Then he yelled, "Commandment!" From King Landhar III's body, an invisible fluctuation spread in all directions. When Sylvan's massive sun collided with that fluctuation, it instantly vanished into the air with a pop. It was as if it had never been there before. Sylvan, your current strength should be at the diamond tier, and you have an angel and a dragon bloodline. However, those are insufficient in front of me. Watson bestowed those abilities on you, correct? Watson has given you so many advantages, but you are still so frail. It appears that the strongest mage in the kingdom is no longer capable of performing the feat. You can't even get close to me. King Landhar III, Sylvan gritted his teeth. He took an unopened bottle of Ascension Potion from his pocket. Next, I will demonstrate my true strength to you. I am curious if you can still say these words then. Senior brother Sylvan, King Landhar III has completely upset you. You are now playing right into his hands. Watson placed his hand on Sylvan's shoulder. Sylvan paused. And your majesty, do not keep saying those meaningless words. Watson, if you want me to stop arguing with the border count over there, you can explain how you were able to disrupt my plan. It may take some time to say it. It is best to see for yourself, your majesty. Watson gestured at King Landhar III. A large portion of his memories flew from the gaps between his fingers and into King Landhar III's forehead. The method of transferring memories was based on the memory transfer technology from the Third Era. The idea was to encase the memories in light and then transfer the light to another person's brain. Since the human chess piece recorded everything related to humans, Watson could learn about lost history, allowing him to use his technology more creatively. He could even build a void warship if he had enough materials. King Landhar III closed his eyes and began to examine the memories Watson had transmitted to him. In order to turn the tables, he needed to know where he had gone wrong. Fortunately, even though his plan to take over Watson's body did not work out that time, Watson could not kill him, and he still had a chance to turn things around. The memories started to transmit. It looked like a library, and it was surrounded by books. It is a fantastic library. King Landhar III immediately recognized where he was by standing in the memory that Watson had instilled in him. When he lowered his head, he noticed that his entire body was translucent. He reached out a hand toward the books on the table in front of him. The bookshelves and books infiltrated his body. He was like a god. He was present in that dream. He could move around and speak freely, but he could not touch or change anything. Soon after King Landhar III became accustomed to the sensation, another person appeared. It was Watson and Amon. King Landhar III knew Amon's name because he had reached an agreement with Watson in the Severed Fingers Gang's headquarters. Watson is here with the Severed Fingers Gangs higher up. What does he intend to do? While he was perplexed, he noticed Watson wave his hand and perform a fusion on all the books in the library, transforming them into the Book of Wisdom. The Book of Wisdom opened, revealing the figures of Ash and a few other Winter Nation people he had killed. That scene took him by surprise, and the book behind it depicted him pacing around the palace. The scene in front of him with the 3 corpses shocked him even more. So Watson entered the Great Library to obtain the books in the Great Library so that they could be fused into a magical tool capable of discovering other people's secrets. I set up a match for Watson in the hopes that he would become my new body. That was after the gods had proven the worth of Watson's treasures to me. When did Watson carry out his plan? Before or after he obtained the Great Library key? Had he anticipated that winning the match would grant him access to the Great Library? King Lander III was perplexed. As a reward, he had arranged for Watson to become the future king and marry his youngest daughter, Kiana. The principal of the Royal Academy gave the key that would allow Watson to enter the Great Library. Was the principal working with Watson? King Landhar III was a suspicious individual. He had no idea Watson had entered the Great Library on a whim and wanted to fuse with it. The fusion with the Book of Wisdom was purely coincidental. While he was thinking, King Landhar III cast a glance in Watson's direction. Watson was asking Ash, who had been duplicated, about the reason for her death and the king's plan at the time. "Watson, you do not realize what a terrifying person your king is," Ash said after telling him everything. "I overheard some of his plans. He told me about them because he saw that I was about to die. His plan was to summon the gods and then learn how to descend into other people's bodies. He intended to use that method against you. He desired to occupy you, the most powerful genius in the kingdom." When he heard Ash's words, Watson's body trembled, and Amon's face turned pale. A gust of cold wind blew past, as well as King Landhar III's body. King Landhar III clearly did not belong in that world, but he still felt the cold. The scene he was in changed as the cold wind blew. It was an ice and snow world. Snowflakes whistled in the sky, and the dense snowflakes were difficult to see in the distance. Glaciers that stood on the ground could be seen on the horizon. He could not stop shivering. Then, he heard horse hooves behind him. To the front of the ice field, two massive horses drew a carriage bearing the emblem of the Winter Nation's royal family. They moved slowly toward the ice field, protected by a few guards. A queen emerged from the carriage, wearing a luxurious white robe, a crystal crown on her head, and sky-blue eyes. A huge black dragon rose into the air in the ice field, accompanied by a dragon's roar, and transformed into a person covered in a black cloak in midair. It was a man who resembled the god of death. "I have brought you the treasure you sought, Dark Dragon King. You promised to assist the Winter Nation in the construction of a Dragon Knight Legion. Are you telling the truth?" the Empress asked. The Dark Dragon King, who was shrouded in black like the Grim Reaper, appeared beside the Empress in a flash as soon as her voice fell. The guards' expressions changed dramatically as a platinum tier aura burst out of their bodies. "That is not good. Defend the Empress. Do not worry, I came in good faith. I won't harm the Empress." The Empress waved her hand at her subordinates, calming them. "Where is it?" As the Dark Dragon King spoke, a black storm surrounded him as he floated alongside the Empress. It hurled the carriage in front of him and the two horses into the air. The horses collapsed and turned into meat paste. The carriage shattered as well, and a layer of black ice formed, but there was no treasure to be found. The Dark Dragon King turned his head, and his cloaked gaze became cold as if it was filled with murderous intent. The Empress remained calm in the face of the gaze, but she did not back down. Instead, she motioned with her hand. "I had my subordinates conduct a nationwide search to strike a deal with you, Dark Dragon King. It took some time and a lot of effort on my part to move all of those things over. Next, Dark Dragon King, you must widen your eyes and look closely." While she was speaking, an army appeared on the horizon in the distance, where the hurricane was howling. The army, riding on a white ice bear, then swooped down. The army had tens of thousands of soldiers, each with a few treasures in their hands. Some of them were carrying enormous loads on their backs. These items ranged from priceless ancient holy relics to priceless jewelry. There were also some holy relics of gold and platinum tiers. The lighting was poor. However, the light emitted by those treasures illuminated the entire planet. "I am curious if you are pleased with the gifts I have prepared, Dark Dragon King. There are a plethora of them. Their quality is mediocre, but having them is not a bad thing. These are only a fraction of the treasures available. What I said before about the formation of the Dragon Knights." Empress Gustav did not seem to mind the Dark Dragon King's contemptuous words. She could not possibly bring all of the kingdom's wealth with her. What if the Dark Dragon King's words to her were all lies? It would not be a loss if she gave up the treasures for free. "Yes, indeed, I will give you 10 dragons to form Dragon Knights if you can bring more treasures." "Only 10? The Holy Dragon Kingdom has 100 dragons. The Empress sounded dissatisfied. "Every dragon I give you is a dragon king. Even though there are only 10, each one is equivalent to 100 ordinary dragons," the Dark Dragon King said. The Dark Dragon King extended his hand, and the 10 dragons behind him, the size of asteroids, soared into the air, emitting an aura that shook the ice plains. After the 10 dragons appeared, even the snowflakes ceased to fall. "They are dragon kings, indeed. I was not expecting you to be so genuine, Dark Dragon King. Then I shall be more generous. I am willing to increase the treasures by 30%. The Empress was taken aback by the scene in front of her. Then, in ecstasy, she reached out her hand, shook hands with the Dark Dragon King, and signed a contract. She left with the 10 Dragon Kings after distributing the treasures. The Dark Dragon King stood in front of the ice field after the tens of thousands of troops had left. He grumbled, "Humans are insatiable creatures who will never cry until they see their coffin. I would have really wanted to destroy the kingdom and seize all of their wealth if I hadn't needed to use legal means to loot the treasures. However, the treasures I have gathered thus far should suffice. Later, I will use the space teleportation spell to travel to the divine dragon star. Perhaps the Dragon Emperor will remember my contribution in great detail." The scene came to a close. The scene in front of King Landhar III's eyes shifted once more. He was walking along the shore of a lake at the time. The lake water was clear, and there was a massive floating city in the middle of it. A carriage was parked by the lake. 2 human guards were urging a girl with sky-blue hair to go with them. "Let's go, Your Highness. Even though the Ptolemy family's head has left the floating city and we have disguised ourselves as humans, it is still not a good idea to be seen by too many people. Wait a second. Do you feel a powerful life force surging from your body and a green light pillar appearing in the distance? It has a strong resemblance to Brother Watson's aura." Alice pressed her hand to her chest and stared into the distance, where the water light rippled. "We do notice that something is different about our bodies. Could young Master Watson have done something?" The guards became dazed as a result of Alice's words. The surface of the water began to fluctuate at that point, and a whirlpool formed in the middle of the lake. The sea folks appeared one by one on the massive waves, and beneath them was a special pearl cannon. There were over 10,000 sea folks, which astounded the fishermen. They had no idea so many sea folks would appear there at the same time. They did not even have that many people when they attacked the city the last time. "Why are you here, Mother?" Alice asked the beautiful leading sea folk, who wore a trident on her head. "Alice, I am afraid your trip to the royal city will have to be postponed for a while." "Have you changed your mind, Mother?" Alice's expression changed. Her mother shook her head and said, "You can still visit the royal city, though. It is just that instead of you, we will go together. Young Master Watson sent us an order to go to the royal city together to finish his plan." The scene had changed yet again. King Landhar III was on his way to a mountain peak at the time. The boundless mountain range stretched for thousands of kilometers as far as the eye could see. There was an endless sea beneath the mountain peak. A large ship carrying dead people was faintly visible on it, but it vanished in an instant. On top of the mountain range, there was a massive tree with thousands of lights that could support the entire sky. The mountain peak stood between the massive tree and the ocean, creating a stark contrast. King Landhar III was visiting for the first time, but he knew it had to be Mount Creation. A few people were floating in Mount Creation's sky, including Sylvan and his 3 children. "Your Royal Highnesses, don't you intend to stay on Mount Creation for a few days longer?" "Thank you for your hospitality, Lord Sylvan. We can't stay here any longer. After all, we have already been here for a few days and gotten what we wanted. If we do not go back now, Father will be worried," the 3 princes, led by the first prince, politely replied. "Very well. Take care on the road. Oh, and one last thing about Mount Creation that I hope no one forgets. The passage of time here differs from that of the outside world." Sylvan snapped his fingers as he sent the 3 princes away. He cast a spell of mental enchantment. The 3 princes' bodies shook, and they turned around and left as if they had forgotten something. On the other hand, Sylvan stood in the sky and waved his hand at the angel army streaking across the sky. "The kingdom's people have departed. According to the Golden Flash, Watson has joined forces with the dragons and has created 10 powerful potions. The Ascension Potion is one of them. Watson wants us to use the wish for the world ring to mass-produce the potion. It will soon be time to launch an attack on the kingdom and overthrow King Landhar III's rule. Indeed, Lord Sylvan, the Black Moon Knights shouted in unison. Watson's memory transmission came to an end at that point. Sweat trickled down King Landhar III's brow as he slowly opened his eyes. Watching so many memories in such a short period made him tired, but instead of tiredness, he felt fear, a fear toward Watson. Starting with the plan to get me from the Great Library, we went to the Dragon Clan to take part in the Dragon Knight test. In reality, we were attempting to strengthen the Dragon Clan and create the potion we needed. Then we sent a signal to the Sea Folks. Finally, they were able to produce the potion at the border. I admire you for following one memory after another. Watson, you have been carrying out those plans since the moment you arrived in the capital. No, you have been carrying out those plans since your arrival in the kingdom. Not only that, but the memories Watson displayed to him were incomplete. What is your Majesty's opinion? Watson flashed a half-smile. Watson, you are a monster in every way. I only have one regret right now. Instead of allowing you to develop, I should have mobilized all of the troops to kill you when you first arrived in the capital. I messed up in that step, and it will not happen again. Do you think there will be another time, Your Majesty? King Landhar III remained silent. King Landhar III, I am not killing you now because you can't die yet, but do not be so arrogant. Sylvan said as he walked to his side, grabbed his shoulder, and flew down. Your life is in my hands now. I am familiar with the story. Hurry up and do what needs to be done. Do not squander your time here. You no longer have another chance.